is like, dude, it's me, Blair, deciding that now is probably not the best time to drop the whole I'm in a new body bombshell. Molly shoves the dagger away and immediately starts pinching and yanking his cheeks. She's 100% convinced he's wearing some kind of Mission Impossible mask, trying to literally peel his face off. But then, out of nowhere, the horrifying realization dawns on her that it's not a mask. That's his actual skin, and yanking it isn't doing anything, getting totally fed up with her little interrogation. Blair delivers a swift kick to her leg, knocking her completely off balance. As she goes tumbling backward, our protagonist, with his lightning-fast reflexes, manages to grab her by the arms, breaking her fall before she can eat the pavement. Totally flustered, Molly screeches at him to let her go, and he's like, all right, I will. Only on one condition. She never, ever points a knife at his neck again. He gives her the death stare, waiting for an answer, while she just stares back, looking completely petrified. The guy lays it out. Look, you've seen my face. No mask, I'm the real Blair. But Molly can't take the heat, and her face goes a shade of crimson you only see in cartoons. She's back to begging him to let her go, then her curiosity kicks in, asking where he picked up these new skills and why he suddenly sounds like a completely different person. Our protagonist decides to hit her with the old half-truth. He goes, look, I am Blair, but also, I'm not. I basically just woke up like this one day. He explains he's from a world with zero magic, a world where science is so insanely advanced, people there don't even believe in magic. To them, it's just stuff you'd read in a fantasy novel. Over there, he says, science is so juiced up, it makes magic look like a parlor trick. People can pull off stunts that your most powerful mages couldn't even dream of. With all that tech, they've already mapped the universe and taken road trips to other planets. He then tells her that in this sci-fi wonderland, he was just a humble math teacher. And that, he claims, is why he's got a brain full of knowledge nobody here could possibly fathom. Molly's mind is just blown, asking, wait, for real? You can fly across the sky? Other planets actually exist? Our guy confirms it. Oh yeah, they exist. He continues, saying space is jam-packed with countless other planets. And the crazy part of it all is, he woke up in this world as some kind of math god and a top-tier mage. The only catch? A convenient case of partial amnesia. The girl's just standing there, buffering, trying to process this massive info dump. You can practically see the loading wheel spinning in her head. Then, all of a sudden, she lets out a huge sigh of relief, looking like she's finally made a decision. Molly cracks a smile and says she totally believes him, because the Blair she knew was always a massive nerd for wild, fantastic stories. Completely confused, he's like, the what now? She explains that he always dug science way more than magic, and constantly whined about wanting to live in a world without powers, probably because he was garbage at it. The girl figures he must have been crying that day because his memory was fried, and then she promises to help him get it all back. He's totally playing along. Our boy, sensing an opportunity, takes Molly's hand and thanks her. She goes full tomato face as he holds her hand, which, naturally, completely kills the romantic mood. She yanks her hand away, telling him not to get any bright ideas. She's only on board for the memory recovery mission, nothing else. And with that, some time passes at the academy, their little tiff resolved. They go their separate ways, leaving Blair standing alone in the hallway, having one of those what is my life moments, pondering his recent life choices. A little paranoia starts to set in, because, hey, this was the first time he'd ever spilled the beans about his whole I'm from another dimension backstory. Then, out of nowhere, he senses someone behind him, and a freaking gigantic hand grabs him. He looks over, and it's Toby, who just casually hoists our boy into the air with zero effort, holding him like a teddy bear. A classic bro, put me down argument kicks off between them, all while Feige is just lurking in the distance, watching the show. By the time they finally spot the blondie, Blair is already trying to de-escalate the situation with his giant friend. Toby marches right up to Feige, demanding to know what he's doing there. But in a plot twist nobody saw coming, Feige takes a full 90-degree bow. He starts apologizing profusely to Blair. He admits he treated him like absolute garbage. Feige Howard insists his apology is 100% sincere and asks for forgiveness. Again, Blair, who definitely did not expect this from the world's most arrogant blonde, just stands there, completely shell-shocked. The vibe gets super weird, and the surrounding crowd starts noticing their boss's bizarre change of heart. But instead of saying a word, our protagonist just stares at Feige with a pure, unadulterated what the hell look plastered on his face. The crowd that had formed was completely clueless. Why on earth would Feige Howard be bowing and scraping to Blair? Then, out of left field, Feige pulls out a super fancy-looking piece of paper and hands it to our boy. It was an invitation from his older brother, FaZe, the new head honcho of the Howard family. Turns out, there was a big shot conference that night for every mathematician in the kingdom. FaZe wanted to have a little chat about the Howard family's public image. Feige, looking like he was being forced to do this at gunpoint, begs Blair to please attend. Toby, whose spidey senses are tingling, warns Blair that this whole thing screams setup. Our protagonist just stands there, mulling it over, deciding whether or not to walk into this obvious trap. Time passes, night falls, the sun goes down, and the ridiculously huge Howard mansion begins to fill up with nerds and nobles. And of course, Blair's curiosity was too powerful to resist. He showed up too, ready to see exactly what kind of train wreck this conference was going to be. And boom, his ear gets yanked and he's having some serious deja vu. It was Isabella, and she is not happy Blair ghosted her earlier. And what do you know? Professor Brittany pops up right behind them, also on the scene. She gives a little hey and mentions she was also on the hunt for him back at the academy. Our boy is totally floored to hear the professor got an invite. Apparently, the gossip about this little get-together has spread across the entire kingdom. So basically, every math nerd in the city is here. Some even trek from out of town. But here's the real kicker. No one else got a legit, formal invitation. Yeah, turns out Blair was the only one to get an official, gold-stamped invitation to this so-called conference. Then out of nowhere, another hand goes for Blair's ear, and he totally freaks out. It's Alice asking what the deal is with his ear. Next thing you know, the whole squad is swarming our guy, all talking at once. It's pure, unadulterated chaos. Our dude can see the writing on the wall. These two are about to argue all night long. Before it could escalate into a full-blown reality show smackdown, Brittany steps in, telling everyone to just get inside the mansion already. And there goes Blair, trapped in a girl-apocalypse, shuffling up the stairs and into the grand hallway. Inside, his eyes lock onto something, or rather, a lack of something. That super famous painting of the capital's 7 bridges, totally gone from the wall. Brittany, right beside him, muses out loud that she's curious to see how the new head of the family, some dude named Abel, is going to clean up this disaster. Blair picks up on the fact she's talking about this Abel guy like an old friend, so he asks if they know each other. She confirms they were in the same class, and he spills the tea. Abel wanted to be a professor at the academy, but then he just vanished off the face of the earth about 3 years ago. She was completely shook when she heard he'd suddenly resurfaced as the new boss of the Howard family. So Blair, his curiosity officially piqued, asks what this Abel guy is actually like. The question totally stumps Brittany, and she's struggling to find the words to describe her old classmate. After a beat, she basically sums him up as a guy who was completely obsessed with math. Like, lived and breathed it. Meanwhile, while the crowd is mingling in the main hall, Abel is up in his office, buried in paperwork. His brother, Face, pops in to tell him everyone's here and just waiting on the new HBIC. But Abel just hits him back with some weird, philosophical question about love, saying the anticipation just makes the big reveal even sweeter. Then he gets down to business, asking if Blair actually showed. The blonde dude says the place is a total madhouse, and there's no way to know for sure if Blair's in the crowd, but adds that he did his part. Abel can tell his brother is wound up tight and tells him to chill out, reminding him he's not their dad and there's no need to walk on eggshells. Finally, he tells his bro it's showtime, declaring this is the dawn of a new era for the Howard family. Cut back to the hall, where the crowd's been waiting so long they've started to get comfortable. Bader's just chilling in the mix when, bam, the back doors fly open and out walks Abel with his brother. The dude with the scar struts down the red carpet like he owns the place. A few jaws in the hall literally drop when they see how young the new leader is. He strolls up to center stage, greets the crowd, and thanks them all for showing up. He introduces himself as Abel Howard, the family's new shot caller. Brittany just stares, realizing this guy has had a total glow-up. He is not the same awkward kid from 3 years ago. The fit, the swagger, it's all different. Turning to the audience, he says he knows they're all itching to get to the main event. But first, he whips out a book and asks if he can tell them a little bedtime story about the family's past. Our guy Blair is staring at the book, his curiosity meter going off the charts, trying to get a read on what it is. Abel then reveals it's the diary of the clan's very first ancestor. He's like, this book contains all the tea the family has been hiding for centuries. So the legend goes, just like every other brainiac, his ancestor went to the 7 bridges to crack that infamous problem. He was there for ages, racking his brain, but just couldn't solve it. Even so, the old dude was stubborn and refused to give up. And then, one fateful day, the ancestor had a eureka moment and thought he'd finally cracked the code. He got so hyped, he ran off to tell literally everyone. The very next day, he was showing off the solution he'd supposedly discovered. The old-timer was riding high, so happy he didn't even bother to double-check if his theory actually worked. He just paraded around spreading the good news. But later that night, so he decided to run one last test, and that's when the cold, hard reality slapped him across the face. He hadn't found the solution at all. In fact, he'd just taken a spectacularly wrong turn in his research. The guy realized his colossal screw-up and knew that, by morning, he was about to get publicly roasted in front of literally everyone. In the end, unable to handle the sheer cringe, the old man decided to take a one-way trip into the river, hoping to pay for his math sins with the ultimate price. He left behind a whole notebook detailing the entire fiasco, and in his final words, begged his descendants to spill the beans and tell everyone the truth. But, plot twist, he clearly never anticipated his family would look at his last wish and say, nah. Instead, they buried the book and spun this epic yarn, claiming their ancestor totally solved it, but that the proof tragically went for a swim with him, all to protect the precious family honor. And that lie has been holding on for dear life until now. But you can't ghost the truth forever. And now, it's payback time for the whole family. After dropping that emotional bombshell, Abel takes a bow so deep he could probably kiss the floor, right in front of the entire conference. He says he wants to apologize to the world for, generations of lies. Immediately, The audience erupts, with people yelling from the cheap seats, shouting about how his family had the absolute nerve to keep the scam going for so long. Blair, sizing up the situation, realizes Abel is dead serious. Once it was clear the Seven Bridges problem was a total dead end, it was obvious the Howard family's reputation was officially toast. Now that he's spilled all the tea, future generations have an even bigger mess to clean up, and for their original ancestor, the Howard name is now basically a synonym for epic fail. Then, out of the blue, a girl in the crowd asks if that's why Abel nuked the math society. Without even looking up, the new family head mumbles that atonement was definitely one of the reasons, but it wasn't the main event. The real reason they shut it all down was something called the devil's number. The same girl pipes up again, asking if they actually managed to find this thing. Abel finally straightens up and says, nope, they couldn't find the devil's number, but it wasn't because they weren't smart enough. He claims this number straight up doesn't exist, which totally sends Blair for a loop. Some old guy in the audience is like, hold up, what makes you so sure it doesn't exist? Abel explains that the number is impossible within the framework of their current understanding, and that is why he torpedoed the entire math society. A dude in glasses asks if that means they'll never crack the devil's number, but the answer is a hard no. The white-haired man declares that the devil's number can absolutely be solved, and one day, they will do it. For now, they're stepping into a whole new dimension of research, and the one person who can lead them there is none other than Mr. Blair himself, from Shendon Academy, the actual genius who came up with the devil's number. The crowd immediately starts buzzing, because literally no one in the room has a clue who our MC is. Abel, reading the room perfectly, says that he gets why no one knows Blair the guy is incredibly low-key, so when he first introduced this mind-bending number, he made them swear not to drop his name. But now, to break through this barrier and enter a new era, he's publicly begging for Mr. Blair's help. At that very moment, Professor Brittany whips around to ask our boy what the game plan is, but then she and everyone else realizes the dude has pulled a Houdini and completely vanished into thin air. Yep, he straight up dipped. The blonde guy walks over to his brother and whispers that Blair is MIA. Abel just comments that he really thought the kid's curiosity would keep him glued to his seat, but hey, guess he was wrong. He says that sooner or later, the kid's got to show his face, and then they can corner him and get all the answers. Some time flies by after the conference. The very next day, the gossip mill is spinning out of control among the second-year class. The rumor spreading like wildfire is that the mastermind behind the so-called devil's number was Blair. Abel basically managed to pass the torch of public scrutiny right over to him. And just like that, no one cares about the Howard family's drama anymore. In our hero's classroom, he's the #1 topic. Out of nowhere, Toby slides up, pokes Blair, and calls his name. But before he can even hear what his friend is on about, Blair just cuts him off. He's like, I saw nothing at the conference. I got out of there. End of story. Please do not bother me. But Toby completely ignores him and just tells him to look where he's pointing. The protagonist turns around and comes face to face with the person standing way too close for comfort. It's the history teacher, a guy named Hank, and he's planted himself directly in front of Blair's desk. The teacher just says, so, I hear, you're some kind of math wizard, but the dude has literally never passed his class. Blair tries to defend himself, arguing his brain's just a messy browser with too many history tabs open. The teacher was having none of it and slammed his fist on the desk. He goes off, saying that even if Blair's a big shot now, he's still a student and needs to get his act together. Toby, looking like he's seen a ghost, decides to cut in, stammering that someone's looking for Blair. Hank gets seriously ticked off about being interrupted and is about to go nuclear on the kid, but Toby just frantically points to the side. Without even looking, the teacher keeps his tough guy act going, saying he doesn't give a damn who it is, not even the vice principal. And then, in perfect comedic timing, the VP himself claps a hand on his shoulder and says, I'm here for Blair. The teacher's entire tough guy persona shatters instantly, leaving a puddle of pure terror. Hank basically shoves Blair out the door, telling him to just go with the guy, like, right now. Our boy doesn't need to be told twice and bolts, and who's waiting for him in the academy hallway? None other than President Calvin, flanked by the vice principal. He offers a handshake, but Blair, looking totally over it, just asks what they want. The VP explains that the entire world is basically spamming them to solve the devil's number enigma, and even the city's math nerds are having a meltdown. Blair gets the picture, and you can see his whole expression just flip a switch. He's about to lay down the law, but gets cut off by Calvin. The president starts his whole "we need your help, it'll be good for you" spiel. But our protagonist, with a slick little smirk, just hits him with a simple, I don't wanna. The scene then hard cuts to Brittany's classroom. She's in the middle of teaching when the door bursts open. It's Toby, barging in without even knocking, looking like he just ran a marathon. He sprinted the whole way to tell the teacher to hurry up. He yells that they've taken Blair and she needs to help. So, naturally, a whole crowd gathers outside the conference room where our boy's been dragged. He's surrounded by the academy's top brass. We're talking 4 vice principals just to grill him and another 10 or so managers posted up at the door. Seriously, overkill much? Blair just looks at President Calvin and asks how exactly he plans on getting his cooperation. The president fires back that since the kid literally invented the so-called devil's number, he can't just leave the entire global math community on read. Then Blair, with a legendary pivot, asks Calvin straight up, so, is it a habit of yours to call the truth diabolical? Oof. That comment definitely ruffled some feathers in the room. Calvin cuts to the chase, asking if it's true the devil's number can't be a clean integer. Our protagonist confirms it, adding that it's not just his number. You can't express a perfect square with the number 2 or 3 either. He explains that this kind of value can't be a whole number, and there are actually a ton of numbers just like it. And the real kicker? This can all be proven with math. Calvin, looking absolutely shook, asks the kid if they've been completely wrong for hundreds of years. But Blair just shrugs it off, explaining that this is totally normal for math. It's a science built on making mistakes and then fixing them. Calvin asks if he can at least help the math community by teaching them the method to prove it. Our protagonist apologizes and says, "Sorry, can't help you there." From their reaction, he finally gets why everyone's freaking out. They're terrified that the truth they've believed for centuries might be a total sham. According to our boy, fear is the most basic human emotion, and there's no shame in the game. Back in his homeland, people fought actual wars just to figure out the truth. He says the only way forward is by conquering their fear. They have to fight this devil one step at a time, and if he just gives them the answer key, it'll actually kneecap the entire world of mathematics. He believes they can summon the courage to face this challenge head-on and level up. After all, courage has always been a top-tier human trait. This mic drop moment leaves the old president completely stunned. You can see the weight of it all hitting him. Then, out of nowhere, every single person in the room gives Blair a deep, respectful bow, thanking him for the lesson. The president agrees with Blair, admitting he's right and they were way too hasty. They thank our protagonist for his wisdom and promise the math community will never forget what he's done. Blair, now panicking at the thought of becoming even more famous, tries to get the president to take it all back. Suddenly, boom, the door rips clean off its hinges and some dude in a white suit gets launched across the room with it. The door is immediately followed by a complimentary set of flying chairs, and everyone, Blair included, just freezes, staring at the source of this absolute chaos. And there she is, Teacher Brittany, standing in the doorway with a look in her eyes that could curdle milk, staring daggers at the administrators. Her power just erupts into the air, making it crystal clear she's about to turn anyone who messed with her student into a fine red mist. Her face is a mask of pure, unadulterated rage as she slowly growls, asking why they took her. Blair. Our boy, on the other hand, is just chilling, waving at his teacher with a big old smile like, "Hey, teach." He tells her it's all good, these guys just wanted to have a little chat. The moment she registers this, Brittany's rage meter plummets to 0, and the cringe hits her like a 10-ton truck as she instantly powers down the apocalypse she was about to unleash. She starts stumbling over apologies to the president and his crew, trying to cook up some excuse. But the head honcho? Totally unfazed. He's like, "Nah, our bad. We went a little overboard and should have texted you." A little while later, it's noon, and the whole international incident with Blair has finally been de-escalated. He and Brittany are now taking the most awkward, silent walk of shame down the hall. Both of them are just trapped in their own heads until Brittany finally breaks the silence, trying to explain she went full-on mama bear because she thought the suits were going to take care of him. But Blair just tells her to relax, pointing out that with this many students around, nobody's dumb enough to try anything sketchy. Then, completely out of left field, she's like, "So, I have a question for you." Playing it super cool, he just goes, "Shoot." So she asks why he decided to cause a Category 5 hurricane over this whole devil's number business. He tries to brush it off with some nerdy excuse about math, community customs, and just asking a simple counter-question. Yeah, she's not buying that for a second. Her face turns beet red, and she just blurts it out. "Do you have a thing for Isabella?" The question hits Blair like a knockout punch, leaving him completely shell-shocked. See, in Brittany's fan fiction-level brain, Blair is the dramatic lead in a spicy love triangle with Isabella and Feige. Her theory is that he's been dissing Feige because, get this, Feige is also crushing on him. So the teacher promises to keep his big secret safe, you know, the one where he publicly humiliated poor Howard just to win Isabella's heart. He desperately tries to explain, but it's completely useless. She's not listening at all, just happily skipping down the hall to fix a problem that doesn't even exist. Our boy lets out one last, desperate wait, but his words vanish into the air, leaving him in total despair. He can already feel the migraine forming from this absolute catastrophe. Time jump to that night, and our protagonist is finally on his way home. We find him in the kitchen, whipping up dinner for himself and Isabella, all while mentally unpacking the sheer, unhinged chaos of Brittany's imagination and planning how to set the record straight. And speak of the devil, Isabella herself materializes in front of him, peeking over his shoulder to see what culinary masterpiece he's creating. A moment later, teacher Brittany waltzes in too, explaining that she invited Isabella over so they could all have a little study session on the devil's number. Changing the topic at lightning speed, Blair asks if it's true that Brittany's main magical talent is wind. He explains his grand plan to build a refrigerator for food storage, but says the project requires some seriously high-level water magic. The teacher, who has clearly never heard that word in her life, is like, refry, what now? So he hands her a sketch, explaining it's basically a magical cold box for keeping food fresh. She and Isabella lean in to inspect the blueprint. Brittany looks genuinely impressed, while Blair stands there with a smug little smirk. Isabella, on the other hand, completely loses it, laughing her head off at his little doodle. Our guy, predictably, is not amused by her reaction and snatches the paper back, starting to grumble about unappreciated genius. But Brittany takes his drawing 100% seriously and, with a flick of her wrist, uses a water spell to create a perfect real-life replica. Blair is absolutely floored, asking how in the world she just did that. She then casually reveals that she's not only a master of air magic but has also maxed out her water magic skill tree. Now it's Isabella's turn to be shook. Apparently, mages who can master 2 elements are so rare you can count them on one hand. After witnessing this casual god-tier flex, our boy gets curious and asks why someone this ridiculously powerful is working as a regular academy teacher. The question clearly catches her off guard, and she gets all flustered, just spacing out. While she's buffering, her eyes drift over to the pot of food. In a masterful display of avoiding the question, she completely changes the subject by brightly announcing that dinner's ready. And it turns out our boy didn't just make a small meal. He's prepared a full-on feast for the 3 of them, with the table set and everything looking picture perfect. Isabella's looking at this spread like it's from another planet, totally baffled by the grub. Our boy just explains they're all recipes from his neck of the woods, which is why she's never seen him before. Isabella's throwing some serious side-eye, doubting he can actually cook, but you can tell she's dying for a bite. A few moments later, the script has completely flipped. The plates are sparkling clean, not a crumb in sight. Isabella's over there licking her lips, just soaking in the afterglow of that 5-star meal. She was absolutely floored by the food our guy whipped up and is now sporting a full-on dreamy expression. This reaction has our protagonist shook, because Isabella usually has the emotional range of a rock. Seeing his chance, he swoops in to tease her, reminding her how she dramatically declares she'd rather meet her maker than eat his cooking. And out of nowhere, the blonde goes full-on tomato red, grabs his ear, and starts complaining that the food was just too dang good. Watching this whole rom-com scene, the teacher absolutely loses it, just cracking up at the whole situation. Her laughter snaps them out of it, and they both ask, "What's so funny?" That's when the teacher just drops it. She thinks they make a crazy cute couple, a total perfect match. This little comment sends both of them into beet-red hysterics, staring at their teacher and wishing the floor would just swallow them whole. To break the cringy silence, Isabella lets go of his ear and declares she's not into pervs. The shot, however, does not go unanswered. He claps back that the feeling's mutual, because he's not into stuck-up girls either. Sensing a full-blown war brewing, the teacher quickly changes the subject. She reminds Isabella she's leveling up to beginner magic and asks which element she's feeling. The girl immediately says she wants to rock the wind element, just like her sensei. But her master hits the brakes, explaining that while wind is flashy, it's pretty much useless in a fight at the lower levels. She says the #1 priority for Isabella right now is learning to not get pummeled. For that, she suggests the earth element. But Isabella wants zero part of that, claiming earth mage attacks are just plain ugly. Hearing this, our protagonist's internal monologue is just dripping with sarcasm, like, wow, what a solid reason. But then, out of thin air, she snags his ear again, and hard. He jumps, yelling at her and demanding to know how she's reading his mind. She just deadpans that she didn't have to, because it was written all over his dumb face. Then the teacher pivots to Blair, asking what element he's going to pick. Our boy strikes a dramatic thinking pose and finger on his chin, and after a beat, he announces that since he was a kid, he decided he's an equal opportunity element enthusiast. Isabella immediately shoots that dream down, telling him there's no way in hell he has the talent to juggle all 4 elements. But as she's looking at Blair, Professor Brittany senses something different. She literally gets goosebumps. She declares that he not only can, but he absolutely will achieve the impossible and master every single element. Isabella looks like that's the biggest load of garbage she's ever heard. But the teacher starts to explain. She says that when Blair slings his magic, this super dense, chaotic aura just erupts around him, which means he might actually have the special sauce to control all 4 elements. To put a pin in that bombshell, she says they'll circle back to it later, because now it's time for the real magic lesson to begin. The whole crew goes wild. After all, their teacher is a certified, high-level badass, but she holds up a hand, warning them that to be truly great, they can't just rely on magic. She explains that even with a god-tier gift for magic, waving your hands and chanting spells takes way too long. To make up for it, mages need to learn some martial arts so they can defend themselves when there's no time for hocus pocus. While the teacher is dropping all this wisdom, our guy is busy contemplating the real-world applications, like using water magic to wash the dishes. The teacher doubles down, saying that sometimes good old-fashioned fisticuffs are more useful than a fireball. That's why, before they learn any spells, she's going to teach them how to throw down. And that's when it clicks for Blair. His teacher isn't just a mage, she's a fighter. Right on cue, Isabella volunteers to fight our hero, bragging that she's already trained in martial arts back home. Brittany just gives him a casual, "Hey, try not to get too wrecked." Isabella promises she won't go all out, and then immediately starts trash-talking Blair, saying that if she can't beat him at math or magic, at least she'll be able to wipe the floor with him in a fight. So, the 2 of them get changed and head to an empty room for the showdown. To get in his head, Isabella warns him he's going to be leaving this room crying his eyes out from the beatdown he's about to receive. With that said, the battle is on. She explodes forward, rushing in for the first strike like a freight train. The girl is a total blur, and in the blink of an eye, she's right in his face, launching a nasty punch aimed square at his jaw. This brawl turns into an absolute marathon. The sun is clocked out and the stars are out, but inside, the brutal dance between Blair and Isabella is still raging on. But plot twist, Blair was totally ready for this. With some seriously slick timing, instead of just taking the hit to the face, he snags her fist clean out of the air. The blonde is totally stunned, her brain just buffering. Blair sees his opening, yanks her off balance, and sends her crashing to the ground. He's on her in an instant, twisting her arm behind her back. Pinned, the girl immediately goes full-on drama queen, pretending it's all over. She starts crying, begging him to let her go. And our boy actually buys it. Hook, line, and sinker. He eases up, relieved it's over, but before he can finish his sentence, a foot comes flying straight at his head. Yep, the blonde was just using the waterworks to set up a counter, but our guy was playing 4D chess and totally anticipated a dirty move. Blair sidesteps like a pro, which sends her tumbling off balance again. This time, she can't recover, and she's taking a one-way trip to the floor. A wave of panic hits her. A fall from this high up is gonna hurt. But then, mid-plummet, she just stops. She cracks open her eyes to see it's Blair, holding her bridal style just inches from the floor. He looks down and apologizes, which sends the girl into a full-on blush fest. Meanwhile, the teacher, Brittany, is just standing there with her jaw practically on the floor. How in the world did this guy just dismantle the mayor's daughter, a girl who's been training in martial arts since she was in diapers? Blair explains that he's never actually taken a formal class, but back home, he was super into this stuff and practiced something called sanda. The teacher admits she's never even heard of that style, remarking that his homeland is one big mystery. Meanwhile, Isabella, still comfortably in his arms, starts pinching his cheek, the universal sign for, okay, fun's over, put me down. Not about to admit defeat, she starts blaming the floor, complaining that it was way too slippery. After witnessing this epic showdown, Brittany, the teacher, is now totally hyped and calls Blair out for a round with her. He's a little hesitant, though. He tries to explain that with Sanda, it's tough to control his power, and he's scared he might actually hurt her. But the teacher just tells him to chill and not to worry about it. So, Blair accepts the challenge, squaring up against the teacher with a serious game face. He instantly builds up speed and whips a kick right at Brittany's head. She goes into full focus mode to track it, dodging at the last possible second with all her might, except the attack was never going to land. Why? Because mid-swing, our boy's eyes got completely sidetracked by the teacher's plot. He suddenly remembered some sage advice from his old master, who said that against a true expert, you won't even see what hits you. For the longest time, Blair thought that was just some old-school mumbo-jumbo, but now, he was getting a first-hand lesson that his master wasn't kidding. With his defense totally down, Brittany laid him out flat without even breaking a sweat. She snags the guy in midair and gently sets him down on the floor. Isabella bolts over, completely panicked and asking if he's going to make it. The teacher's just like, chill, he just took a little power nap. He'll be up any second. The blonde retorts that for all she cares, that weirdo could stay asleep forever. Realizing Blair is completely lights out and can't hear a thing, Brittany seizes the opportunity to drop an absolute bombshell. She straight up says she knows Isabella is crushing on him. The girl is so shook, she turns fire engine red and starts yelling from pure embarrassment. She frantically tries to deny it, calling the teacher insane and swearing she'd never like a creep like him. But Brittany doubles down, saying it's way more than a hunch. She's 100% positive about the girl's feelings. Isabella was about to clap back, but her timing was, let's say, spectacularly bad. Still in a daze, Blair groans the teacher's name, and without even looking, his hand just latches onto the first thing it finds. Isabella's soul just about leaves her body as she watches the guy, still completely out of it, give the teacher's chest a solid squeeze. Then his eyes start to flutter open as he tries to reboot his brain. The very next day, our boy is back at the academy, sitting in class and nursing his battle scars. Toby looks over with a wicked grin and asks what really went down at Brittany's house, obviously hinting at something spicy. But Blair just flashes back in fury to the absolute train wreck that happened right after he blacked out. So right after Blair's little accidental grope fest with the teacher, Isabella goes full-on berserker mode on the poor guy. A battered and bruised Blair tries to make a run for it, screaming that she's about to turn his arm into a pretzel. The teacher has to jump in, telling Isabella to chill, explaining the dude was knocked out and didn't mean to get handsy. Meanwhile, our boy is seething. This girl's got the fighting technique of a flailing toddler, but she hits like an absolute freight train. He's completely blindsided by her combat skills. Clearly, she had a top-tier sensei and must have trained like her life depended on it. In this world, your average Joe doesn't just pick up martial arts from day one, let alone magic. So Blair's deduction? She's got to be some high and mighty noble. Then, out of the blue, Toby pops up, hyped out of his mind, bragging he's already mastered that spirit-summoning thing Blair showed him. Our dude is just gobsmacked at his buddy's insane talent for picking up a complex skill so fast. Toby, buzzing with energy, is like, dude, watch this. He goes full-on focus mode, channeling all that power into his hands and summons the fire element. The magic starts swirling, and he belts out the name of the fireball technique, trying to unleash the spell. Blair just stands there, watching the show, both curious and kinda confused. He's thinking, oh, where's the boom? But Toby tells him to squint a little harder. As they both lean in to inspect his hands, they spot two absolutely minuscule fireballs just chilling between his palms. Blair immediately starts roasting his friend, saying that at this rate, he's never going to catch up to his magic level. But on the inside, he's thinking, dude, that's not a fireball. That's like two sad little sparks. Suddenly, his spidey senses start tingling. He whips around and is greeted by a hand holding a massive slice of cake right in his face. It's Alice. She heard Blair busted his arm and brought him some comfort food, figuring he probably forgot to pack a lunch again. She even throws some shade at Toby, guessing he's already inhaled his own snacks. Our hero's like, aw, I feel kinda weird taking this, but his eyes are practically glued to the cake. With a grin plastered on her face, she asks if it's any good. The second Blair takes a bite, he's basically in heaven, admitting her cooking is legendary, and asks what she's doing here. Turns out, she's got a question for him. Blair promises to give her the straight-up truth, and tells her to just spill it. So, Alice cuts right to the chase. Do you have a thing for Isabella? This question totally blindsides our boy. Instead of a straight answer, he deflects, asking why she's so curious. But she's not having it and presses him for a real response. Blair, trying to play it smooth, claims the only thing on his mind right now is magic. She clearly thinks that's a super lame excuse, but in the end, she seems to buy it. But before the dude can even process that interrogation, Alice leans in and plants one right on his cheek. Now Blair is even more of a blushing mess, and as she bounces, she casually mentions she'll be dropping by more often. At this point, the entire class, who just witnessed this whole soap opera, is collectively shook at how this guy is a total chick magnet. Anyway, class finally lets out, and Blair makes a beeline for the library, still trying to decode what the heck Alice was on about. But he just shelves that thought, remembering he's already burned through every magic book on this floor. Finishing the last book, he stretches out, letting out a massive yawn, totally wiped. So, next stop on the agenda, the second floor, which is basically the VIP section for advanced magic books. He strolls up to the main desk and spots a purple-haired girl completely lost in some book with a hot pink cover. Looks like we've got a romance novel connoisseur. Our boy approaches, says what's up, and asks for the hookup to get upstairs. The girl gives his idea bored once over, sees he's just a regular student, and immediately shoots him down flat. Second floor is for beginner-level mages and up, buddy. No exceptions. He admits he's not quite there on the whole spiritual power thing and asks if there's a loophole. The girl hits him with a hard no and even throws a little salt in the wound, asking how he expects to even read the advanced stuff. Anyway, our guy is getting seriously ticked off by her bougie attitude and is about to clap back, but then, out of nowhere, Molly materializes at the desk. She recognizes our hero and asks if he needs a hand. The purple-haired librarian from Heck could not care less about any of this. She just turns her back and basically tells Molly, you deal with it. So, Molly explains that to get access, he needs a mage ID, even the most basic entry-level one. She suggests he could try getting recertified, but the odds are basically zero, since his spiritual power is like a leaky faucet. Still, our boy decides to go all in, telling her he's just cracked the code on upgrading water magic. Molly's like, whoa there, this is the big leagues. If he wished this, he gets the ultimate library banhammer and can never check out a book again. But Blair's got that I'm about to change the world look in his eye. Molly takes a beat, figures it's not her problem, and agrees. She politely tells him to follow her, pointing to a nearby room of judgment. Molly pops into the examiner's lounge and breaks down the situation. One of the old-timers is completely floored, like he can't believe a student wants to drop a patch for water magic. The other examiner is calling total BS, thinking it's just some lame excuse. I mean, the water ball technique is centuries old. You can't just slap a new OS on it. The blue-robed mage sends a clear warning. Tell the kid to seriously rethink his life choices, because if he's bluffing, his academic career is absolutely toast. But Molly isn't backing down an inch. She vouches for the kid, putting her own rep on the line, and tells them to just let him take the shot. Seeing she's dead serious, the old guys just sigh and wave it through. Man in Blue finally caves and tells our protagonist to get in there. Blair struts into the seriously janky room, gives his mask a cool adjustment, and prepares to drop some knowledge. The two mages couldn't care less. They're just kicking back, sipping on some weird red juice and shooting the breeze. Our protagonist greets them, which they promptly ignore. He introduces himself as Chenlu, just your average magic student, here to pitch them his groundbreaking upgrade to their Water Ball 1.0, a method that'll seriously juice its damage output. Hearing this, the red-robed examiner's eyes go wide, and his brain just completely blue screens. Out of nowhere, Red Robe leaps out of his chair, pointing a shaky finger and screaming that he recognizes this kid. He's the one who busted into their office with that crazy magic. He spins to his partner, yelling that they need to get to the reinforced testing room, like yesterday, because last time this kid nearly blew the whole wing off the building. The other mage, the one rocking a mustache, is totally confused by this freak out, protesting that he's just a student and couldn't possibly be a threat. Famous last words. So Mustache Mage, full of unearned confidence, tells the kid to hit him with this so-called improved water ball. And Blair, oh boy, he starts powering up, mana crackling around his body. He starts pulling on both fire and water elements at the same time. A roaring flame erupts in his left hand and in his right. A swirling vortex of water rapidly takes shape. The water mage sees this and is absolutely stunned, frozen in place as he waits for the inevitable boom. He immediately starts screaming at his buddy that the kid's a dual caster and scrambles to put up a shield. Meanwhile, Blair, having gathered enough juice in his hands, begins to forcibly smash the two opposing elements together. Under immense pressure, they fuse, and as they mix, a shockwave of steam and water blasts outwards. The fire mage, who wisely already had his shield up, gets a sudden flash of PTSD. He knows exactly what's coming next, and it ain't pretty. Boom! A massive pressure explosion rips through the room, sending everything flying. Thick steam fills the air, and as it clears, a lone silhouette appears in the center of the chaos. Brushing dust off his now tattered robes, the water mage furiously calls out to the kid. He's glaring daggers, completely unhinged, screaming about how in the world he managed to pull that off. For our protagonist, this technique is ridiculously simple. First, you whip up a water ball, then you make a fire one. After that, you just kind of squish them together really hard until they merge. He explains that when they fuse, they unleash way more energy than either spell could alone. It's just basic math. The man in the blue robe is still trying to catch his breath, his mind blown by the whole two elements thing. He's clearly impressed and asks him to hang tight for a minute. Ollie decides to play hostess for the guy who just redecorated their office, bringing him a cup of tea. He, of course, thanks her. It gets a little awkward with her just standing there, so he invites her to sit down. Trying to kill the silence, he asks if Molly is also a mage. She kind of blushes and admits her skills are nowhere near his league, obviously still replaying that epic explosion in her head with heart emojis. But our protagonist hits her with the humble brag, saying he's not that great since he hasn't even hit the initial level yet. He insists the power comes from the technique, not the user. Yeah, he can use two elements, but that has nothing to do with skill. According to him, it's easier than it looks. It's basically like patting your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time. Piece of cake, right? Our boy even flexes by sketching on a piece of paper with both hands at once. He hands it over, revealing he just doodled two different animals at the same time. She's all like, the dog and cat are adorable. But he has to correct her. They're actually a wolf and a tiger. Cue the awkward silence. Not to be outdone, Molly chimes in that she can totally multitask too. Meanwhile, the two mages who tested him are blowing up the vice president's office to spill the tea. The VP is not buying it for a second, basically saying there's no way some low-level nobody could juggle two elements at once. But the dude in the blue robes, Brady, swears that he and Andre saw the whole impossible feat with their own two eyes, and that's when a crazy idea starts brewing in the VP's head. What if this kid just unlocked a whole new path for magic? But hold on, what's the use if he's the only one who can do it, if the technique isn't scalable, and it's basically worthless? So, on the VP's orders, every manager and staff member gets yanked into an all-hands meeting, and you can bet they're all thrilled to be pulled away from their actual jobs. Then, out of nowhere, the vice president himself rolls in with the two mages, announcing that someone has discovered a game-changing new technique. But here's the catch. You gotta conjure a ball of water and a ball of fire at the exact same time. The guy, Brady, steps up to explain. He says they've gathered everyone to see if this is a practical skill or just a one-off fluke, and tells the whole room to give it their best shot. Immediately, the room fills with skeptical murmurs. Is this even possible? They whisper. The purple-haired girl glances at our protagonist, thinking, wait, was it him? Nah, no way. After all, he's just a student. With that, the entire room of mages goes full-on concentration mode, trying to pull off this fire and water stunt. One guy actually looks like he's getting close. A flame sparks to life, a blob of water starts to materialize, and then, poof, the whole thing fizzles out as the water goes haywire and the spell completely collapses. No matter how hard anyone tries, they just can't get fire and water to play nice. The whole crowd starts grumbling that it's impossible and that no one's ever done it before. So Brady reports back to the VP that literally no one could do it. The VP is like, all right, take me to this kid. I need to see how it's done. As they're marching over to Blair's room, Brady tries to get a word in with the big boss, but gets shut down before he can even finish his sentence. The old man sighs, admitting he thinks only Chenlu can pull this off, which is a total bummer if it's a one-person show. It was really starting to look like our boy's big idea was about to get shot down. But then, plot twist. Molly strolls in, and she's totally nailed the trick. There she is, holding a perfect sphere of water in one hand and a crackling ball of fire in the other. The three old-timers just freeze, their jaws practically hitting the floor. Molly finally spots them and, a little startled, is like, oh hey, Vice President Elton. Our protagonist greets him too, immediately using the chance to hype up his friend, saying Molly's a total genius who picked up the technique in no time. So, did I pass the test now? He asks. But the old man hits him with the bureaucracy, explaining that the official rules require at least 3 people to master a new magic for it to be approved. And as they just proved, they rounded up the entire magic society, and besides Molly, not a single soul could juggle both elements. Molly, looking super bummed, asks if that means he's going to fail. But the VP pulls a 180, announcing he's making a special exception for Chenlu because this method could literally reshape the future of magic. But wait, there's more. He even offers our protagonist an honorary membership in the super exclusive Magic Society. Our guy says it's a massive honor, but he's got one condition. The VP gives him the floor, and Blair lays it out. He wants Molly promoted to assistant manager. Molly is just standing there, completely blindsided, looking back and forth with wide eyes like, wait, what is happening right now? A little while later, the purple-haired girl storms into the secretary's office, absolutely fuming that Molly snagged the assistant manager job. The salt is real because she was convinced that position was hers for the taking. She starts grilling one of the secretaries, demanding to know where Molly and the new student are, her patience wearing thinner than a sheet of paper. She gets right in the other girl's face, calling her an idiot. But then, a light bulb goes off. She remembers our hero had asked about the library's second floor. Meanwhile, Blair is over in the VP's office, doing the most exciting thing ever, paperwork. He's signing the official patent for his new technique, and the old guy gives it the final stamp of approval. And just like that, the patent for his soup-head-up water ball technique is officially his. Our boy's mind is absolutely blown. Turns out this fantasy world has a better IP protection system than most streaming sites. The head honcho of the Magic Society lays out the game plan. They'll market his new move, and anyone wanting the secret sauce has to cough up some cash. The profits? A clean 50-50 split. One slice of the pie for our boy, the creator, and the other for the society. And get this, if anyone tries to pirate the technique, the Magic Guild's anti-piracy software apparently works instantly. The perp gets slapped on a blacklist immediately, and depending on how bad it is, they might even get cuffed. Blair's just standing there thinking how wild it is that their science is stuck in the Dark Ages, but their copyright game is from the year 3023. Then the old dude drops the price tag for the spell, a cool 100 gold coins. Our hero practically chokes for him. That's like lottery money. But the president completely misreads the room. He thinks Blair is scoffing at the lowball offer and immediately goes into damage control, explaining it's a pro-level technique, and if they jack up the price, they'll just get a bunch of angry noobs who can't even use it. Blair's like, nah, dude, the price is fine, but he's got a big brain solution for that exact problem. He suggests slapping a little disclaimer at the end of the user manual. Basically, a big ol' warning label saying this spell requires some serious skill, so buyers should probably think twice before dropping the cash, and, crucially, all sales final. He even throws in a terms and conditions clause saying he and the society have the final say on everything. The old guy's like, what's that last part for? And our boy explains it's their ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card for any future complaints. The president is genuinely impressed by Blair's corporate-level scheming, thinking of every single loophole. Blair just smirks and throws a little shade, saying the old man's no slouch either. Great minds think alike, after all. Fast forward a bit, and Molly is leading our hero to the library's VIP section on the second floor. And holy smokes, this place is like 10 times bigger than the ground level. She explains it's an exclusive club for high-tier mages, which is why it's a total ghost town. Up here, you've got endless shelves of OP magic and next-level techniques he can binge-read. Molly clocks his googly-eyed expression and asks, what's up? Our protagonist, with zero filter, straight up tells her he's digging the new uniform. This completely catches her off guard, and she gets all flustered, stammering out a thank you. And then, right after that, he pivots on a dime and asks if they've got any books on how to level up his spiritual power. Molly says that's a pretty niche genre, with only a few titles available, but she does a quick search and boom, finds exactly what he needs. The book's title is literally How to Buff Your Spirit Stat, a practical guide. But as she's coming back down the ladder, Molly completely loses her footing and goes into a full-on nosedive. She shuts her eyes, ready to become a pancake on the floor, but the splat never comes. She opens her eyes and realizes our boy pulled off a superhero-level catch, and now she's cradled in his arms. The classic anime moment is happening, and Blair just casually asks if she's good. Molly's brain short-circuits as she gets a weird flash of déjà vu, feeling like this has happened before. But they've got an audience. A certain redhead just arrived on the scene and was peeping the whole romantic comedy cliché from behind a bookshelf. And of course, her brain immediately jumps to the spiciest possible conclusion. This redhead immediately assumes Molly's just cozying up to the new hotshot to climb the corporate ladder. So she struts over to Blair and tries to get under his skin by calling him Chenlu, but he just claps back, clearly not having any of it. She congratulates him on acing the test, then lays the charm on thick, cooing about how she always knew he had it in him. She then hits a full-on thirst trap pose and offers her services, promising she'll do anything for him. But Blair, with the emotional range of a rock, just tells her to bounce. Her master plan goes up in flames. She's just stunned, realizing her usual cheap tricks are having zero effect. Blair, feeling he might have been a little too savage, actually apologizes. But then he immediately follows it up with a sick burn, telling her to scram because he's about to crack open some books with words way too big for her to handle. The redhead backpedals hard, apologizing for her earlier attitude, and then tries to throw Molly under the bus, claiming she's the office gossip who's always talking smack. Our hero's BS detector goes off. Molly hasn't said a peep about this girl, so the one bringing up drama is probably the one starting the drama. To put an end to this nonsense, he pulls the ultimate I'm telling the manager move and threatens to call President Elton if she doesn't leave. She finally gets the message and bolts. At last, peace and quiet. Time for Blair to hit the books. All right, so Magic 101. Your spiritual power is basically a genetic lottery. The more gifted you are, the faster you grind those levels. Currently, mages have two main ways to juice up, either by meditating like a monk or just spamming spells like there's no tomorrow. But the author of this book, Blair's reading, he found a cheat code. See, when a mage learns a brand new spell, it completely bottoms out their mana bar. But after they catch some Z's, not only does the juice come back, but their maximum capacity gets a fat upgrade. So, the strategy is beautifully simple. Blair just needs to run his magic on empty, let it recharge, and repeat. It's a magical workout routine designed to shatter his natural-born limits and get totally jacked. Our boy is beyond hyped and decides today's the day to test this exploit. This is his one shot at graduating from magic scrub to actual mage. Without a second thought, he bolts to his favorite haunt by the academy fence. But then, out of nowhere, his brain hits the emergency brake. He freezes mid-stride, a look of, did I leave the stove on, plastered across his face. He's got that gut-sinking feeling he's forgotten something mission-critical, so he sprints back home. And what greets him? Two girls looking at him with faces that could curdle milk. The reason for their saltiness? He forgot to play personal chef. Blair is genuinely floored by their utter helplessness, thinking they're basically a couple of high-maintenance Tamagotchis. Isabella practically launches out of her chair, going full-on Karen mode, demanding to know where he's been and why there's no food on the table. Not even trying to argue, he just sighs, throws on an apron, and mumbles an excuse about being held up at the Magic Society, figuring the professor had dinner covered. Yeah, right. Our dude then spots the blonde and is like, wait, what's she doing here? And she, looking way too pleased with herself, is practically vibrating with excitement to share her news. Then she drops the bombshell. Starting today, she's his new freaking roommate. Blair's brain just completely blue screens. The news is so jarring, he literally drops the frying pan. His less than enthusiastic reaction totally ticks off the girl, who cannot fathom why he isn't overjoyed to be living with someone as amazing as her. So, Brittany, the professor, steps in to play peacemaker, spinning a tale about how Isabella is moving in to make studying magic and math so much easier. Suyur, or MC, ain't buying that flimsy excuse for a second and turns back to the stove, muttering under his breath. Isabella, with her supersonic hearing, catches it and is immediately in his face with threats. Blair just decides to tune out the chaos for a minute. He's got one mission tonight, grinding his magic stats. Everything else is just a distraction. Finally, dinner is served and the squad sits down. Isabella, of course, inhales her food first, letting out a sigh of pure food coma bliss. And our guy immediately swoops in to kill the vibe, hitting her with, cool, you're on dish duty. After dinner, the crew heads off to get cleaned up. And then, Blair, in a moment of pure, unadulterated genius, just barges into the bathroom to tell Isabella she forgot her hair tie. The problem? He walked in on an unscheduled costume change, getting an eyeful of the girls in their birthday suits. Our boy instantly goes the color of a tomato, and the only reply he gets is a slipper launched at Mach 5 directly to his face. A little while later, as night falls, everyone starts winding down. We find Blair at his desk, contemplating his new, unpaid job as a full-time babysitter for these two agents of chaos. But suddenly, he's done with the pity party. He shoots out of his chair and slams the desk. He was supposed to be unlocking god-tier magic tonight, not running a daycare. The time for gains is now. Cracking open the book, he locks onto his target, the Firebird technique. The instructions are laid out right there, plain as day. But of course, just as he's getting in the zone, there's a knock at the door. An already annoyed Blair grunts, who is it? It's Isabella, obviously. She's decided to make a late-night social call. Biting back his irritation, our guy tells her she can come in. She starts with this whole act, saying she felt bad about the slipper to the face incident and wanted to check on him. But Blair's BS detector is screaming. He knows this is just a lame excuse, so he cuts right to the chase. Spit it out. What do you really want? Flustered, she admits she couldn't sleep, and then hits him with a casual, so, what are your life plans? Our protagonist is completely blindsided, like, where the heck did that come from? She explains she's only got 1 year of school left, while he's still got 2, and she's just super curious about his post-graduation plans. His answer? He hasn't given it a single thought. He'll probably just stick around the academy as a TA. You know, living the dream. Losing all her chill, the girl practically teleports to his side, latching onto his arm with a two-handed death grip. In a voice that's 99% pure desperation, she asks if he's really not going to go to the capital after graduation. Her eyes are doing that sparkly anime thing as she promises her dad can pull some strings, get him in, and then they could be, you know, study buddies. She's already picturing the whole domestic fantasy, with him as her personal chef, admitting she just feels like super good when he's around. Our boy is completely bugging out from the personal space invasion and stammers that more school would be a total time suck. For now, he's just trying to vibe at the academy and level up his magic. Isabella's face drops, her voice laced with concern as she asks if this dinky academy can really give him the education he needs. He's like, hello? We are Professor Brittany, explaining her brain power is more than enough for him. Hearing the teacher's name makes Isabella's face go beet red, instantly flagging her as enemy number 1. And just like that, her whole vibe shifts, accusingly saying he just wants to stay here to be near Brittany, not her. She doesn't even wait for a denial before laying on the guilt trip. And at that exact, comically timed moment, the professor herself walks in to see what all the racket is about. Brittany pokes her head in, asking why they aren't tucked in their beds yet. Then, her brain finally boots up and processes the scene before her. Her eyes go wide as she clocks the two of them in that very interesting position. Cut to the next morning, where Brittany is serving up an incredibly awkward breakfast for the whole crew. Our guy's mind is flashing back to the night before, when he tried to completely drain his mana, grinding new spells. He woke up feeling like he'd seriously leveled up, which means his drain and gain training method is totally legit. But his inner monologue gets cut short by the professor. She starts a lecture about how it's way too early in their careers to be getting that friendly in his room. But our protagonist immediately goes into damage control, swearing they were just talking post-grad plans and she's got it all twisted. Brittany, surprisingly, just backs off and apologizes for the misunderstanding. But right then, Isabella slams her cup on the table with enough force to wake the dead. Isabella is radiating pure, "I'm so over this" energy, a scowl practically carved on her face. Switching gears, she snaps that she has a class and she's out. The teacher, clearly not wanting to poke the angry bear, just gives a little nod. Then, as Isabella storms away from the table, she casually accidentally drives an elbow right into our boy's face. A baffled Brittany asks if he and the blonde bombshell had a fight last night, but he just plays dumb. After that little drama bomb, the teacher pivots hard, asking if he's free this morning. She needs him to play courier and drop off an article about the devil's number at the Mathematics Society. Blair agrees, and on the way, he's just geeking out over what a stone-cold genius Brittany is. He gave her like one tiny hint, and she basically solved the whole thing herself. He finally arrives at this busted, rundown brick building and has to wonder if his GPS sent him to a crack den by mistake, because this place looks totally abandoned. The inside isn't winning any awards either. It's a scene of pure chaos, with people swarming everywhere and paper piled up like snowdrifts. A guy with a magnificent mustache at the counter tells him if he's got a manuscript, just chuck it on the shelf. And if he's here for a reward, he's got to talk to the manager. Blair says he's just dropping off a paper, and the man's reaction is, well, it's weird. The guy's eyes practically bug out as recognition dawns. He fumbles for a second before finally remembering Blair's name and then bellows it for the entire room to hear. Our protagonist is floored since when is he famous? A nearby secretary gushes that she saw him at the seminar, and suddenly he's being mobbed by math nerds, demanding autographs and firing off questions. Completely blindsided by his new fan club, our boy tries to make a break for it, insisting he's just a delivery guy for his teacher. As he's halfway out the door, the secretary yells that he can come back for his reward anytime. The word reward hits his brain like a lightning bolt, and he spins around on a dime. His eyes are practically glowing as he asks what reward she's talking about. The mustache guy even apologizes, admitting he thought Blair was just some clout chaser looking for a quick buck. Trying to play it cool but failing miserably, Blair asks again what this reward is all about. The man with the mustache is absolutely floored that Blair has no idea. He explains that the Mathematics Society literally pays out cold, hard cash to anyone who can solve their ridiculously hard math puzzles. And the more insane the problem, the bigger the payday. So, our boy's eyes practically turn into dollar signs at the mention of cold, hard cash, and he's all like, let me see these so-called problems. The guy just shrugs and says, follow me. He leads him to the society's wall of shame, a bulletin board absolutely plastered with papers showing off equations that look more like wanted posters for rogue numbers. The guy casually mentions these problems have been collecting dust since before he even started working there and that he fully expects to be 6 feet under before anyone solves them. Blair, deciding to lean into the drama, tells the crowd to back off and give a genius some breathing room. He then strikes a pose that screams, I'm thinking really hard right now. He's just chilling against a brick wall, pretending to summon the great spirits of mathematics or something. A dude from the society, completely bewildered, turns to Andre's guy. He's like, what's with your boy? The rep just plays along, whispering, you can't distract him. Inspiration for a mind like his can vanish in a second. While this poor guy is just standing there waiting for a mathematical revelation, his buddy nudges him and points out that, yeah, it looks like their genius has already bounced. The dude starts panicking, whipping his head around, totally confused about where the prodigy he just hyped up has vanished to. Meanwhile, our black-haired hero had already dipped, giddy with the thought of scoring an easy 500 gold coins for solving what was basically elementary school homework. My man was flat broke, unable to afford any new techniques, and had zero idea this much gold was just chilling in the Math Society's headquarters. Let's be real, he couldn't care less about the advancement of mathematics in this world. He's just here for the paycheck. Our protagonist literally dances his way down the street. He's so hyped, he even spooks a couple of kids. The game plan? Solve everything in secret, then stroll in to collect his fat stacks of cash. A day passes, and it's dead quiet over at the Math Society. The brown-haired guy even throws some shade, asking Andre why this Blair dude is supposed to be a genius if he just up and left. Andre tries to save face, guessing that maybe even a prodigy like Blair couldn't crack problems that had been stumping people for years. Then, out of nowhere, the door flies open and a massive stack of papers gets yeeted onto their table. It was our boy, ready to turn in all his homework at once. He announces he's in a hurry and needs his reward, like yesterday. The dude, looking completely lost, asks which of the problems he solved, and our guy just smirks, all of them. In that instant, the man with the mustache looks like his entire operating system just crashed. He's just gawking at the black-haired guy in utter disbelief as our protagonist, disguised as Chenlu, confirms he solved all 23 problems from the Yabo City Mathematical Society. Vice President Andre and his crew spent the rest of the day frantically double-checking the guy's work. All of a sudden, someone screams that the mustache man finished his review and every single solution was perfect. The entire mathematical society is absolutely floored, their jaws hitting the ground. They're all just processing the fact that a legitimate miracle just happened, and some random dude's speed ran their entire backlog of unsolvable puzzles. Meanwhile, our hero was so over all the fawning that he just curled up on a pile of books and took a nap out of sheer boredom while everyone else was losing their minds. Some of them were even seriously suggesting they start calling him the god of mathematics. Finally, Andre, with actual tears in his eyes, goes to wake Blair up. He wakes up and is basically like, "Are we done here?" Once they confirm, the entire room bows to him. Andre then asks for the legend's name. He coolly introduces himself as Chenluo. They try to pay him the full reward, but in a total power move, he politely refuses a tiny bit of it, just to let them know their business relationship was just getting started. Blair, still rocking his Chenluo persona, wastes zero time and makes a beeline for the Magicians Association to make it rain. He slams the cash down in front of Molly, demanding to buy some new magic. Far, far away, a knight is galloping for his life on horseback through a nasty storm. He's pushing the poor animal to its limit, like he's in a mad dash to get somewhere. Terrified, he's not going to make it in time. Through the downpour, he can finally see it. The palace of Yabo City's lord, perched between several mountains like something out of a movie. The messenger announces he's got an order straight from the capital and has to hand-deliver it to the big boss. Marching into the lord's office, the knight hands the letter to a gray-haired man. So, this distinguished gentleman is Ozdem Clavios, the big boss of Yabo City. He's reading a letter, gets this totally baffled look on his face, and is basically like, "You've got to be kidding me. Is this legit?" The messenger is all, "Yes, sir. Some dude named Baird is already posted up in Yabo City. The capital confirmed it, but his exact location is a total mystery." The mayor's wife overhears the name Baird and chimes in, saying he's that infamous traitor, a top-tier mage who straight up vanished 3 years ago. Clavios has no clue why this guy's suddenly back in the neighborhood and says, with a hint of panic, that if he unleashes his power, it's game over for Yabo City. While all that drama unfolds, our protagonist is just sitting in class and, out of nowhere, his pen takes a nosedive. He's just that week after pulling an all-nighter learning that fancy new magic he bought. Those 500 gold coins just weren't enough, and my man is already brainstorming his next get-rich-quick scheme. Toby, being a total troll, remarks that Blair's been looking constantly exhausted ever since he started rooming with Brittany. Meanwhile, the class fangirls are huddled up, practically worshipping a drawing of the so-called math god. And on the paper, a drawing of Blair, disguised as Chenluo, striking an over-the-top heroic pose. Toby, completely unimpressed, calls the girls delusional and starts grumbling. Seeing this, our hero plays dumb and asks what god they're on about. Toby explains that this new guy, Chenluo, just casually solved 23 of the Math Society's most impossible problems. He's literally the only thing anyone in the entire Kingdom of Lon is talking about. Blair is secretly soaking up this popularity, but at the same time, he's a little salty that his fake identity has been elevated to god status. Toby figures a math genius that good has to be some crusty old man, definitely not a young guy. Then he switches gears and asks Blair who he's planning to team up with for the magic training after class. Our protagonist is shook, asking why Toby isn't his ride or die. His pal explains he's sitting this one out because his power level is still in the single digits. He also gives him a heads up that the second and third year students are going to be there too, and Blair's reaction to this news is, let's just say, a little suspicious. Finally, night rolls in, and it's time for the training to kick off. The instructors explain the whole point is to level up their magic by actually, using it, but they make it crystal clear. While practice is great, not getting unalived is even better. Safety first, kids. That's why they've already nerfed the mountains, clearing out most of the major threats. But the students still need to stay on the designated path and not wander off. Now it's time to squad up in teams of 3 or 4. The mission: survive one night in the mountains and report back by noon the next day. The second the instructions are done, Isabella and Alice make a beeline for Blair. To avoid any awkwardness, Isabella asks who he's planning to team up with. He suggests the ultimate diplomatic solution: they all just stick together. Alice finds this hilariously cute and says he has a big heart for wanting to include all his friends. He's totally down with the plan. Isabella, on the other hand, looks absolutely livid, clearly bummed she won't get any alone time with Blair. Seeing her death glare, the other girl asks if she's in. With basically no other choice, the blonde agrees. Our boy is just relieved he managed to dodge a catfight. Suddenly, we hard cut to a distant spot behind a mountain. A gray-haired man appears, gazing at the horizon. He turns and informs a certain Mr. Bear that the sun has officially clocked out. Bear takes a dramatic pause, thinking of the perfect villain line for his waiting minions. At last, he announces that they've arrived. Staring at the fog-drenched peaks, he declares that the city of Yaba will not be seeing tomorrow's sunrise. Back in the mountains where the test is happening, night has fallen and the creepy crawly sounds are out. A little white rabbit, just chilling, suddenly senses it has company. Wasting zero time, it starts charging up a fire spell in its mouth and launches a freaking fireball at the intruders. But out of nowhere, right before it connects, the fireball just fizzles out mid-flight. The one who canceled the spell was Isabella, who snuffed out the attack with a casual flick of her wrist. The girl is absolutely hyped, completely stoked that she just controlled magic from a wild creature. Blair, who is standing nearby, starts mansplaining that if the rabbit lost control of the fireball, it would be completely paralyzed. Then, out of the blue, our boy yelps as someone grabs his ear without any warning. And would you look at that? It's Isabella, here to school Blair on proper rabbit etiquette, starting with the golden rule. You don't grab him by the ears. She snatches the fluffy dude, cradles it like a pro, and starts petting it. Then, plot twist. Someone grabs Blair's ear, but this time it's a super gentle tug, definitely not the you're in trouble kind. Surprise, it's Alice. She gets all up in Blair's personal space, totally hyped, asking if the ear pull hurt, and seizing the moment. Our boy pivots the conversation, asking Alice if all animals are packing magic. She's like, totally, and drops some lore about the Divine Grace continent, where basically everyone and their pet hamster has magical abilities. But hold up, most are just one-trick ponies, stuck with a single element and no fancy moves. Take these rabbits, they're supposedly fire types, but the best they can manage is spitting out some sad, weak little water bubbles. Yeah, don't ask. She also casually mentions that Blair's big question for Professor Anthony. Yeah, literally nobody has a clue. And speaking of the professor, cut 2. A lone figure deep in the forest, having a philosophical staring contest with a boulder. Surprise, it's Professor Anthony himself, and he's about to get a visitor from the shadows. The mystery man, Akel, strolls up and is basically like, dude, shouldn't you be patrolling? But Anthony's mind is still blown, completely stuck on that question from Blair. Now the vice president's interested, asking what's got him so twisted. Anthony explains that our boy discovered fire-breathing rabbits and now wants to know why humans can't just spit flames without all the magic words in Jazz hands. And just like that, Akel hits the pause button, his own brain starting to buffer on that exact same question. Boom, now you've got 2 grown men standing in the woods having a full-blown existential crisis over bunny biology. Akel, the silver-haired dude, finally reboots his system and tells Anthony to get back to his actual job, protecting the students. But the professor, still stuck in the matrix, pointing out that Akel conveniently dodged the question. The vice president is so over it, cranks up the volume, and basically screams at him to just go protect the students. Meanwhile, back at the campfire, Blair's squad is chilling. Isabella, striking a very particular pose to emphasize her assets, casually mentions that Blair's already had a hands-on experience and then drops the million-dollar question. So who's got more, me or Alice? Blair just about combusts from pure cringe, stammering that it's a really tough call. But Alice, ever the scientist, suggests he should probably, double-check hers just to be sure. This sets Isabella off, who loudly proclaims that her rabbit is obviously bigger and demands he admit it. She shoves the actual, literal bunny she caught at him, telling him to feel it again, but the poor creature is having none of it and starts freaking out, trying to make a break for it. Isabella completely loses her grip, and the fluffy escape artist bolts, leaving her standing there just watching it disappear into the trees. She spots its trail leading to a hollow stump, with just a little cotton tail sticking out. But as she gets closer, she sees the little dude has burrowed way deeper inside. So while Isabella is squinting into the abyss trying to find the rabbit, Alice creeps up behind her, when suddenly a bizarre noise rumbles from the hole, and the whole forest floor starts to vibrate. The entire crew gets that uh-oh feeling right before something big and bad goes down. And yup, the ground literally splits open under them, the crack growing wider by the second. A sinkhole forms right beneath the girls, sucking them down into the earth. They land hard in some kind of hidden chamber as a shower of dirt and debris rains down on top of them. And then, like something out of a horror movie, a hand bursts through the dirt. It's Isabella, clawing her way out of her temporary grave, first her torso, then pulling her entire body free. First thing she does is find Alice and haul her to her feet, dusting her off. The two just lean on each other for a second, totally dazed, trying to figure out what the heck just happened. I mean, they just took a 26-foot dive and somehow didn't break every bone in their bodies. Now they're just staring up at the hole they fell through, way up high. Isabella's in survival mode, trying to get her bearings. It looks like some kind of old tunnel, with wooden beams holding up the ceiling. But Alice? She's not even thinking about herself. She just crumbles to the cold floor, pushing through the pain to weakly call out for Blair. Isabella realizes her friend is in seriously bad shape, barely even conscious. She tries shaking her, trying to snap her out of it. She does the finger under the nose check for breath and pure panic sets in when she realizes Alice's breathing is fading out, fast. Not wasting a single second, Isabella goes straight for mouth to mouth, desperate to save her friend. And against all odds, it works. Alice's eyes fly open. She jolts upright, hacking and gasping for air. A massive coughing fit takes over, her face turning beet red as she struggles to breathe. Hey, at least she's not possessed anymore. Isabella lets out a huge sigh of relief, glad she didn't have to eat her bestie, and asks if she's good. Alice's first question, where the heck are we? Isabella's like, no clue. We fell down a mountain hole. Maybe it's an old mine? But Alice immediately shuts that down, saying there are 0 mines anywhere near the academy, and Isabella spots a random door nearby. After a super awkward pause, Alice finally mutters, thanks for saving her life. But Isabella's reaction is just weird. She's just giving Alice this blank, buffering stare. Alice is like, hello? What's with the face? And Isabella just deadpans that she never, ever expected to hear a thank you from her. Meanwhile, back on the surface, the whole world is shaking and everyone is officially freaking out. The students are panicking, not about survival, but about failing their exam because the quake scared off all the bunnies. Priorities, right? But then Archie strolls in to be the voice of reason. Just then, Anthony comes sprinting in, announcing that a full-scale evacuation is underway. He explains the earthquake was a total surprise party that nobody wanted, and the teachers did their best to get everyone out. But, he adds, some students are still unaccounted for, and Professor Cook is doing a frantic headcount. And then, out of absolutely nowhere, the unmistakable thunder of horse hooves pounds the earth, a seriously bad vibe heading straight for them. A squad of dudes in full-blown armor appears on the horizon. They're screaming for everyone to get out of the way, barreling down on the students, who are all just frozen in a state of pure what the heck. Professor Anthony is wondering what in the medieval fair is going on, while Archie's face goes pale. He starts putting 2 and 2 together, whispering that maybe the earthquake wasn't exactly natural. And while all the chaos is popping off outside, let's cut back to our girls in the creepy underground lair. Isabella finally gets that door open. The room on the other side is absolutely massive, so of course, they go inside to investigate. And right in the middle, they come face to face with a super trippy pillar glowing with an eerie purple light. And get this, there are symbols just floating around it, glowing in the same spooky color. Isabella, without a moment's hesitation, raises her hand to try and read the ancient runes, but she can't make sense of a single one, complaining that the writing is way too extra. So, since reading is off the table, she decides on plan B. Just poke the magic thing and see what happens. And in a shocking twist, a massive beam of energy erupts from the pillar and zaps her. The energy completely engulfs Isabella, launching her a solid 10 meters backward. Seeing this, Alice rushes over to help, but Isabella just hops back up like she stubbed her toe, saying she's fine and that the column is probably rocking a super powerful spell. Alice, our resident redhead and nerd, mentions that this actually looks familiar from some old magic books. According to the legends, an ancient civilization built a giant copper column with magical engravings. By hooking up some copper wires, they could generate an insanely strong magic field. Isabella's curiosity is piqued, and she asks what the field is for, but Alice has no idea. She guesses maybe for healing, or like supergrowth for plants. And then, because things weren't weird enough, a volley of metal arrows starts raining from the sky, aimed right at them. The arrows pick up speed as they plummet towards the girls, but thankfully, the shooter's aim is terrible. The arrows, now coated in a thin layer of ice for some reason, slam into the ground just a few meters away. They both whip their heads up to see where the attack came from. Lounging on the stairs above is a blonde dude casually holding a massive arrow. He smirks, saying the girls are pretty skilled. The guy's just chilling by the railing. He's got this mysterious look in his eye, still clutching that arrow. Alice finally speaks up and asks who this armored cosplayer is. He just fires back that he should be the one asking the questions. And then, bold as you like, he informs them that they're about to meet their maker. Hearing this, the girls exchange a wide-eyed, we're screwed look and start plotting an escape. Without wasting a single second, they both start charging up a fire spell to barbecue this guy. But he just smirks, watching their little magic show with total amusement. He literally just stands there as a giant fireball hurtles toward his face. Then, bam. The fireball slams into an ice shield that materialized out of thin air. The attack did absolutely nothing. This guy, without even breaking a sweat, just completely nullified their magic. The girls' jaws hit the floor, stunned at how easily he shut them down. So, the dude decides to close the gap and gracefully leaps right over their heads. He lands, sends Isabella flying with a powerful kick, and immediately turns his attention to Alice. While one is down for the count trying to remember her own name, the other braces for impact, but she doesn't even have a split second to react. So this psycho slams his spear into the wall, like an inch from Alice's face, clearly trying to win Intimidator of the Year. The giant metal spear is just chilling by her temple while she has a full-on panic attack. Then, he grabs Alice by the throat with one hand and starts to apply some serious pressure. He's squeezing so hard she's coughing and gasping, before lifting her clean off the ground with a single, ridiculously strong hand. He's still giving her the Darth Vader treatment while she tries to talk, but my guy isn't listening. Then, with a super grim look, he actually apologizes. He's all like, sorry, but I gotta end you, right as Alice is about to check out. In that instant, the man whips a sword from his belt and lunges right at the girl. He's aiming straight for her dome. The blade hits home and blood sprays everywhere, except, plot twist, he missed his intended target. The sword is now a brand new shoulder accessory for our protagonist. The attacker is totally bugging out, clearly not expecting this heroic entrance. Alice just stares, horrified, as Blair starts leaking. And right on cue, Isabella finally wakes up from her nap, sees Blair, and is absolutely stoked that her knight in shining armor has arrived. She screams for him to be careful just as the attacker gets jump scared by a random burst of fire. The flames just erupt and whip at the blonde dude like a wild animal. The fire starts toasting him, and the guy is absolutely floored that Blair just used magic without saying a single magic word. Then a massive fiery explosion goes off with him dead center. When the smoke and dust from that little barbecue start to clear, we see Blair's crew all safe and sound. Alice and Isabella are okay, and now their personal bodyguard is on the scene. The blonde, however, is super worried about his new shoulder piercing. But Blair's all business, explaining he just followed them through the same hole, never taking his eyes off the bad guy. He's like, we'll deal with the stab wound later. Meanwhile, Crispy Critter over there is already getting back up. Turns out he's one of Bar's minions, and he's freaking out because Blair's magic is somehow faster than his boss's. So, Mr. Whitehair decides there can be no witnesses and coats his long metal spear in a thick layer of ice. He charges our boy, ready to turn him into a human popsicle. The girls do the obligatory watch out, scream, but Blair just stands there, letting his enemy close the distance. The villain's brain just short-circuits at this reaction, his face a perfect picture of what the heck. That's when he finally spots the giant mana orb floating right above him. He squints, realizes it's a water ball technique, and is even more stunned because Blair cast it without so much as a finger wiggle. He also notices the water ball is kinda lumpy. Before he can think on it, the whole thing crashes down, completely swallowing him. Suddenly, he starts springing leaks from like everywhere, and the blonde dude starts coughing like crazy. His eyes are pure rage and his exposed skin looks seriously overcooked. His wet metal spear slips right out of his bloody hand. He tries to get up, but all that comes out is a frustrated scream. Totally overwhelmed by the sheer power of that attack, he finally collapses, out cold. At the same time, cut to the surface, where we see Bear just chilling on a huge boulder. He's got his best deep-thinking villain face on, looking extremely serious. One of his goons notices and asks him what's wrong. Hopping off the rock, Baird looks away dramatically and says some rats have snuck into their operation. Meanwhile, that squadron of knights is now miles away. They're hauling it toward the forest when their commander yells for everyone to stop, announcing there's an underground passage right ahead. He orders the men to dismount and get ready to go in. Turns out, the bandit leader is a highly trained warrior named Baird, a top-tier mage and an all-around extremely dangerous dude. One of his men then taps the captain on the shoulder and points, a short distance away. A lone mage with a staff is just standing in the middle of the road, blocking their path. And surprise, surprise, it's Baird himself. He turns to the knights like they're old buddies and casually informs them that this road is closed. The knights, not big on chit-chat, decide to just launch a full frontal assault. They line up single file, just waiting for their commander's signal. One knight even turns to the guy behind him and tells him to stop tailgating. Gassed up on pure confidence, they charge the mage, their battle cries echoing like a terrible high school metal band. And, cut scene, we're now looking at a black-haired knight eating dirt. His dome is painted crimson, his sword's long gone, and he's just chilling in the mud, rethinking all his life choices. He's gasping for air between his now very dead buddies while the sky cries on their failed mission. He wakes up to a graveyard of his bros and their horses, clutching his head like he's got the world's worst hangover, and it hits him. Ethan is the last man standing in this absolute slaughter fest. Then, out of the blue, a voice whispers his name, which is, super creepy. Turns out, it's coming from one of the bodies that isn't quite a body yet. It's his uncle, holding onto life by a thread. The kid scrambles over, eyes already starting the waterworks. Plot twist. Uncle's missing his legs. And just like that, Ethan's sadness meter flips straight to uncontrollable rage. But the old-timer's all tiz but a scratch, hands him a mysterious something, and tells him to finish the quest. Ethan, meanwhile, is having a full-blown panic attack. Like, bro, I can't do this. He lays it out. The mage soloed their entire army. This bear dude won, shot at their commander, and could probably pop his head like a grape with one finger. The kid's trying to play medic, but his uncle is stuck on one track. The mission, nephew. The mission. He's practically begging him to just go already. And right in the middle of his save, the city of Yabo speech, his uncle's hands go slack and he just checks out. The young knight finally gets it his uncle's gone, and the feels hit him like a freight train. So, fueled by pure despair and rage, Ethan goes full-on Super Saiyan scream. Meanwhile, back in the same sketchy dungeon, Blair's crew was exploring. A whole different drama was unfolding. After dealing with Baird's henchmen, the girls finally get a moment to patch up our boy Blair. Isabella was totally grilling him about his no-words-needed magic trick, but he was playing dumb, not getting a straight answer. She decides to use some enhanced interrogation techniques right on his wound. Blair, predictably, lets out a yelp and starts doing the worm on the floor. Alice is like, hey, maybe be a little less psycho? But the blonde claps back that he shouldn't have been flexing so hard. Anyway, they shift their focus to the giant, mysterious pillar that's just vibing in the middle of the room. Our redhead, Alice, mentioned she read somewhere that the pillar is part of some big deal magic formation. What it does, exactly, no clue. But they're pretty sure the earlier earthquake was its fault. Alice also points out that the dude who jumped them suggests this whole operation is way more complex than they thought. Blair's like, All right, we need to bounce and spill the tea to someone in charge. He makes it clear he is not trying to be the main character in this horror movie by himself. And just as he says that, a sword magically appears at his throat. The girls turn and see some random dude standing behind Blair and immediately go into freak-out mode. Some knight with maxed-out stealth skills snuck up on them, and now his blade is giving our boy a very close, very unwanted shave. The armored dude demands to know who they are and what their deal is. But he blinked, and for a pro like Blair, a blink is an eternity. He whips a hand out, snags the guy's arm, and dips under the blade like a pro. The knight's face is pure shock, like he just saw a ghost who knows martial arts. Blair doesn't miss a beat. He uses that hesitation to instantly flip the script, grabbing the knight's arm and twisting it into a human pretzel. Slaps him in an arm lock. With the guy neutralized, Blair calls out that this dude's got a buddy. Isabella, meanwhile, is just staring at the now captured brown-haired knight, with a look on her face that's 1 part surprise and 2 parts, well, hello there. And this knight, by the way, is our boy Ethan. Ethan starts demanding to be let go, screaming that if Blair doesn't, the whole city of Yabo is going to get deleted. This, understandably, makes Blair freeze up, staring at the guy like he just grew a second head, totally clueless. The whole squad's curiosity is piqued, and they're all asking for the deets. So, after finally letting Ethan go, he starts spilling. Isabella, of course, pushes for more info. Turns out, the capital knew for a few days that some dude named Baird had rolled into town, but nobody could track him down. The real problem? They had zero idea this Baird guy was basically a walking nuke. And Blair, sweet, innocent Blair, pipes up and asks, who's Baird? The entire group just cracks up, because it's literally unbelievable that our boy is this out of the loop. So Alice, bless her heart, starts to break it down for him. She drops the bombshell that this Bird guy is, to put it mildly, the most infamous and dangerous criminal in the entire Kingdom of London. We're talking boogeyman level famous. And the kicker? He used to be a freaking general in the Royal Army. So the dude's not just a brawler, he's also a top-tier mage packing some serious magical firepower. He was basically the kingdom's golden boy, their superstar, until nobody saw it coming when mid-battle, he and his whole squad just flipped the script and betrayed everyone. Ever since that epic backstab, he's been a ghost. The king even put a massive bounty on his head, but to this day, nobody's even gotten close to cashing it in. So Isabella pivots to the knight, demanding the intel on this Bird character. She's like, is it true he's in Yabo City just for that weird structure? And what the heck does that thing even do? Ethan, looking like he's seen a ghost, flat out says that the magical system is a city killer. Blair's crew is floored, asking if he's for real that the entire city could just be deleted. The knight then lays it out. The device is made of 118 pillars hidden inside the mountain. And get this, nobody has a clue who built them or why. All they know is this ancient doomsday machine has been sitting there for over 1,000 years. 10 years ago, the city's head honcho found out about it and scrambled a team of mages to figure out what they were dealing with. The mages came back with the terrifying news that this formation's power is light years beyond modern magic. If it hits full throttle, it'll generate enough juice to completely vaporize all of Yabo. Since there was no safe way to just unplug the thing, they put the area on lockdown and classified it as top secret. The knight has no clue how Bird managed to fire it up, but the reality is, the countdown has started. Blair's already trying to figure out how they're supposed to hit the off switch. That's when Ethan pulls out a magic stone, claiming it's their solution. Our MC's team just stares at the rock, completely baffled. So, Ethan explains that while the formation has a ton of pillars, there's one master pillar that controls everything, and this rock he's holding was conveniently found right next to it. The mages did their homework and found that just getting the stone close to the pillar seriously nerfs the formation's power output. And if you make direct contact, the whole system just powers down completely. The light bulb goes on for Blair. Their mission is a high-stakes game of find the pillar. Ethan confirms, but quickly adds the buzzkill reminder that Bird is way out of their league. Our protagonist suggests the obvious, call in the cavalry, get as many soldiers as possible. But he shoots that down, saying it's way too late for reinforcements. They need to solve this, like, now. Because in exactly 1 hour, the formation hits max power and it's game over. He puffs up his chest, going full hero mode, declaring he's the only one who can find the pillar and that all the civilians need to get to a shelter. But right in the middle of his big, brave speech, Blair, barely holding in a laugh, points at the knight's pants and says he really didn't want to interrupt his shining moment. Ethan, who is riding high on his own heroism, looks down and his face just freezes. There's a giant, unmistakable wet spot right on his crotch. The guy's face goes nuclear red as he stammers out a pathetic excuse, blaming the, rain for getting his pants soaked. Suddenly, Isabella is on her feet, looking thoroughly unimpressed, like she's about to take charge. She proclaims that her family, the Klaus, are the city's protectors. She says they've defended Yabo for generations and that it's her duty to step up. Then, she declares she's coming with them to shut the system down. Just then, Blair catches wind that the bounty on Bird's head is a staggering 100 million gold coins, and his jaw hits the floor. It's only then that it finally clicks for Ethan that the girl in front of him is Isabella, as in, the mayor's daughter. Hearing about that fat stack of cash, our protagonist gets a sudden surge of civic duty, clapping the knight on the shoulder, and he proclaims that protecting Yabo is also his responsibility as a model citizen. Inspired by her friend's sudden patriotism, Alice also vows she's not backing down and will join the mission. The knight gets all choked up, completely moved by their courage, thinking they genuinely want to save the city. To completely kill the vibe, one of them suggests that maybe the knight should, change his pants before they go save the world. Ethan, as you can imagine, is absolutely fuming. Meanwhile, a crew of mages is gathered around some kind of mysterious magical force field. They're throwing every spell in the book at it, but it's like trying to punch through solid steel. So this giant dome is just straight up tanking every single attack they throw at it. One of the mages, probably sweating bullets, turns to a guy named Elton and is like, "Yeah, our magic is doing jack squat against this thing." Another wizard, Andre, pitches the brilliant idea of just waiting for the president to get back. But the vice president, ever the party pooper, swoops in to crush their hopes and dreams, dropping the bomb that the prez is on a road trip to the capital and won't be back till tomorrow morning. Then, out of literally nowhere, the mayor of Yabu just materializes in front of them, asking for a status update. Elton basically has to tell him, "Look, we've got every magic user in a 10-mile radius here, and we literally haven't put a single dent in this barrier." The head honcho chimes in, explaining the vanguard actually slipped past the barrier and found a plaque with some ancient text. So now their master plan is to cross their fingers and hope. Meanwhile, on the inside, trekking through some spooky underground tunnels with the squad, Ethan suddenly gets a case of the cold feet, blurting out that this whole mission is a one-way ticket to the afterlife. But just then, Blair, having none of it, just spins around and delivers a classic head smack. The knight, totally offended, is like, "Dude, why'd you hit me? We're right next to that web." And at that very moment, he feels a little tickle on his neck and goes to brush it off. He pulls his hand back and, oh look, it's a nightmare fuel yellow spider with a creepy white head. Our brave knight absolutely loses it, screaming his head off and running like he's on fire. And in his 5-alarm freakout, his foot lands squarely on a pressure plate. Reflexes like a cat. Blair yanks Ethan back by the collar just as an arrow zips past where his face used to be. Realizing he was about to get a new, very unwanted piercing, the knight gives a shaky thank you to our hero. Blair then lays it out for the team. This whole place is an Indiana Jones death trap, and are they sure they want to do this? Ethan, however, is suddenly brimming with confidence. He claims he knows a secret path he learned about from Core. Apparently, there are a bunch of ways to get to the main pillar room, but every single one funnels them through the main gate where that bear dude is almost certainly waiting to turn them into paste. He knows a head-on fight with Baird is a big fat L. So, his big brain plan is to lead them through a secret shortcut that completely sidesteps the main gate. The mission? Sneak in, plant the thingy on the pillar, and bounce. Simple. Blair, understandably curious, asks how the heck he knows about this magical shortcut. Ethan proudly explains he's got a history degree and can read ancient script. He just happened to find a map in the palace one day, and boom, now he's a walking GPS for ancient dungeons. Blair then asks the million-dollar question, why is a history nerd playing soldier? The knight admits the job market for history majors is, shocker, not great. His uncle pulled some strings in the Royal Army to get him the gig, and get this is his very first mission. Blair just thinks, with a sigh, that even in a fantasy world, you can't escape the soul-crushing nightmare of job hunting. It's just like back home. Just then, Ethan spots a section of the wall that looks a little off. He gives a suspicious panel a push, and it clicks inward. The walls grind open, revealing a brand new secret hallway for Team Blair. Ethan declares this is their express lane straight to the main room to wrap this thing up. But, plot twist, the big bad Baird is already there, waiting. One of his goons reports that the magical shield outside is holding strong, and the good guys are still stuck. Baird's like, yeah, this security system is top-notch, then randomly asks about some dude named Sid. His minion says Sid went to check out the west sector and just vanished. Baird gives the main pillar a long, hard stare, his eyes scanning the ancient writing around it. He's thinking another little rat must have snuck inside. And speak of the devil, at that very second, Blair and the crew are tiptoeing through that secret passage. They hit a staircase leading right up into the main chamber, so our black-haired hero decides to play spy and peek inside to scope out the scene. Seeing that the coast is clear, he pops open the secret hatch, which was cleverly hidden as just another floor tile. At last, the squad emerges from that claustrophobic hallway, and their jaws hit the floor at the sheer size of the room. Isabella points out that, yeah, it's huge, but instead of a pillar, there's just this giant, glowing energy ball. Turns out, activating the pillar transformed it into this orb. Then Ethan, our resident bookworm, spots another plaque on the floor, basically an instruction manual for getting the pillar back. He starts reading the ancient text aloud, and you guessed it, weird stuff starts happening. Just like that, a small pillar materializes out of thin air, completely wrapped in an ominous purple glow. Ethan explains it'll take a couple of minutes to fully extend, and as Alice celebrates bringing their knight along, she admits she's surprised that for a total scaredy cat, he's actually taking this seriously. Hearing this praise, and clearly wanting to impress the girl, Ethan immediately goes into full-on brag mode, puffing his chest out, claiming he's a soldier from Yabo City, and that citizen safety is like his #1 priority. Blair just smacks him upside the head, telling him to drop the act. Suddenly, Sir Knight gets all serious, saying he's doing this for his uncle. Apparently, his dad checked out early when he was just a kid, and his uncle raised him like a second father, but then Bar came along and wiped out his uncle and the whole squad. So now, his life's mission is protecting his uncle's only daughter, who's chilling back in Yabo City. Blair, trying to lighten the mood, jokes that he thought Ethan was just thirsty for his cousin. The guy turns a shade of red you only see in cartoons and stammers that he's not worthy. Suddenly, the two girls give him a friendly, super painful squeeze in his no-no zones, teasing him for getting a little too worked up, but then they spot a photo in Ethan's hand of some girl. He explains it's his uncle's daughter, Lena. And get this, he says as soon as the mission's over, he's gonna race off to meet her. Blair, completely ignoring the photo, grabs Ethan, yanking him close. He tells him, "Dude, you do not say stuff like that." He's basically warning him he just jinxed himself big time. Ethan just gives him a blank stare, totally confused. Blair explains it's a saying from back home. You don't pop the champagne until the job is done. The girls chime in that they've never heard of that word, knocker caught. Finally, the pillar stops rising and everyone shuts up. Ethan announces he's activating the seal and tells Blair's crew to just hang tight. Blair, caught off guard, is like, the seal again? The knight explains it's a basic cloaking spell on the fragment to keep Baird from finding it. He pumps some of his energy into the stone, and it floats up, bathed in a sick purple glow. Ethan holds the fragment in the air, yelling for everyone to bolt the second it connects with the pillar. But then, his face shifts to pure, unadulterated panic. Right on the spot where he was putting the seal, a massive fireball just erupts from nothing. His whole body is engulfed in flames as he desperately tries to shield himself. The magic dies down a second later, but by then, the knight was already lights out. The seal he was about to use slips from his hand, clattering on the floor near his head. Turns out, Baird wasn't the total moron Blair's team thought he was. He'd clocked the little rats who jumped him earlier and had clearly rigged a nasty magical trap on the fragment. The girls share a look and are instantly on the same page. Spotting Baird and his posse up ahead, they start quietly weaving a spell. Second they're ready, they launch a fireball at each of the enemy leaders. But the main dude with the white hair, he doesn't even bother to move. The fire magic just fizzles out of existence before it even gets close. The girls are left completely gobsmacked. This guy's spiritual power is so insane he can just delete their spells without lifting a finger. But then, something from out of nowhere makes Baird actually tense up and snap to attention. A whole shower of fireballs comes screaming his way, and this time, he can't just wave it off. The magic slams into the mage's body, and the attack came from Blair himself. Blair's just as surprised as anyone that he actually managed to land a hit. While the big boss never gets a scratch, his goon starts to panic. But Baird? He actually looks impressed. He realizes our boy launched that attack without any chance or hand signs, and that his spiritual energy is seriously bizarre. Seeing his chance, Blair yells at the girls to grab the fragment and bounce while he holds off the mage. With that, he unleashes a volley of fireballs straight at Baird, who's still just standing there like a lawn ornament. At the absolute last second, the white-haired dude throws up a magic shield. He's shocked that our black-haired hero can cast magic with zero prep time, but the girls can't make their escape. The room is absolutely swarming with other powerful dudes besides just Baird. Still, Isabella is not about to give up. Even after getting caught, she's trying to use her senses to find where the seal is. Seeing this, Blair figures the only path to victory is to take down the big boss himself. Baird, meanwhile, is analyzing our boy's technique, wondering why he's summoning two different elements. Our protagonist has conjured both water and fire magic and is starting to smash them together. The two elements fuse right in Baird's face, and a colossal explosion tears through the room. The white-haired guy's crew sees the massive blast and starts freaking out for their boss. Blair, oozing confidence, is pretty sure his attack was a direct hit. But before the smoke even settles, the white-haired dude rockets out of it, fists first, gunning straight for our hero. This completely blindsides Blair. He never in a million years expected the mage to just tank his attack and then start throwing hands with a vengeance. Barrett even starts schooling him mid-fight, like pro tip kid. Before you swing, know their weak spots. You were wide open for a counter. After landing a few nasty shots to some key pressure points, Bear puts his opponent on the floor. He scoffs that the kid's got potential, but zero real-world fight IQ. And if this was an actual war, he'd be pushing up daisies. Just then, Ethan jolts awake, screaming that Barrett's the one who's got it all twisted. The mage, for his part, looks absolutely shocked that the knight is even conscious after eating a magic nuke like that. Ethan's face is a total mess, but his eyes are blazing with pure grit, totally ready to cash in his chips. And in the middle of all that chaos, he somehow managed to snag the seal near Isabella. His body is basically held together by spit and willpower, and he can barely stand. But then, bam, he whips up a hand holding a stone. Before anyone can blink, he cocks his arm back, ready to yeet the seal directly into the pillar. Trying to shut this down as soon as possible, Bear yells for a blonde guy named Oslo to launch his spear. So Blair, seeing the play unfold, tries to save his new buddy, screaming for him to hit the deck. But when Ethan hears his name and all the commotion, he just freezes, completely lost in a flashback. Suddenly, we're watching him as a kid, standing at his uncle's grave with his other uncle and cousin. Back then, he innocently asked if his late uncle Jason was a hero because he was super strong. His other uncle just deadpans, nope, Jason wasn't strong in body or spirit. Honestly, he was a coward. The kid, totally confused, asks why everyone calls him a hero then. The answer was brutally simple. He took one for the team to save everyone else. And snap back to the present, where the scene is so intense Blair and his crew are literally crying. Isabella is just screaming Ethan's name in desperation. But Ethan doesn't even flinch, taking a spear clean through the chest, because he already won. This is the moment a regular dude does something insane and becomes a legend for it. The stone he threw hits the bullseye and starts getting slurped up by the creepy pillar. One of Bear's goons, sounding totally defeated, asks if the formation is busted. Oslo, the blonde spear chucker, just coldly remarks, the guy didn't even try to dodge. Meanwhile, Bear strolls up to the kneeling Ethan and puts a finger under his nose, checking for a pulse. After a beat, he just flatly announces, he's gone. Hearing this, Blair goes from 0 to 100, absolutely enraged that they killed his new friend. Bear's crew starts panicking, asking what the new plan is now that everything's gone sideways. Bear, however, is staring intently at a drawing Ethan was holding, a picture of the girl he was fighting to get back to. The squad gets nervous seeing their boss so quiet, but he just says, we lost. He explains that the kid didn't bail, he accepted his fate. He chose to become a human missile to shut down their machine. Looking genuinely bummed, Bear declares that this round goes to them, and it's time to pack it up. The blonde dude, shocked, is like, why can't we just try something else? Bear shoots that down, saying they don't get the mechanics of it and would just be signing their own death warrants. Instantly, his entire crew drops to their knees. They're begging him to try again, pledging they're ready to die for him. They're desperate for payback, saying if there's even a 1% chance, they have to take it. But just as they're about to cook up a new, probably terrible plan, another squad of knights rolls in and ties up our hero and his team with some heavy-duty rope. The girls get strapped to chairs while Blair is trussed up like a Thanksgiving turkey and unceremoniously dumped at their feet. Isabella and Alice start freaking out about him, since the guy is still looking wrecked. But he just gives them a strained look and says he's fine, already healing up. Just then, the knights report to their boss that all the pregame prep is finished. After a moment of intense thought, Bear thumps a fist against his chest and with a sudden surge of energy, asks his soldiers to ride with him one last time. And his crew, without a single hesitation, roars in agreement. So the whole squad strolls up to this giant purple pillar, slaps their hands on it, and starts chanting some ancient mumbo-jumbo. And just like that, all their magical juice starts swirling together, morphing into this massive cloud of mystical fog. Blair, our resident newbie, is totally bug-eyed, asking his crew, yo, what is this? Alice, ever the expert, drops the bomb. Looks like a sacrifice spell, my dude. Apparently, they're jump-starting the barrier. But here's the kicker. The price is a one-way ticket to Powerlessville. They can never get their magic back. And as they dump every last drop of their mojo into the pillar, the thing starts to thrum with power. Up top, the regular folks feel the vibe shift, like a disturbance in the force. Elton radios, the mayor, like, hey, the shield was on the fritz, but we're back in business. The big man in charge just kind of shrugs it off, but even he gets this gut feeling that something majorly messed up is going down in the basement. Meanwhile, back underground, one of Baird's goons is cheering his head off. We did it. But then, plot twist. He looks down and realizes he and his buddies are literally fading out of existence, and the dude just smiles, all chill, and gives his boss a final peace out. In return for them ghosting themselves, Baird swears the city of Yabu is going to be a smoking crater. Hearing this, the fading soldier is totally at peace, thanking his leader like he just won the lottery. Alice and Team Blair put 2 and 2 together, the barrier's back online. Isabella completely loses it, screaming at Baird, demanding to know why he's going full-on psycho. Like, she just can't compute why anyone would want to wipe a whole city and its hundreds of thousands of people off the map. Baird, fresh off watching his crew evaporate, basically admits, yeah, I know we're messed up. We're a certified squad of lunatics. But that's not really an answer, is it? So Isabella gets in his face again like, yeah, but why are you doing this right now? And this time, Baird actually pauses to consider it. Figuring he's got a solid half an hour before everything goes boom, he decides it's story time. The screen goes wavy, and we flash back to him and his boys, pinned down on top of a tower. One of his buddies, Oslo, lays out the grim reality. They're out of arrows and have, like, half a day's worth of snacks left. The commander declares they're busting through the siege, no ifs, ands, or buts. They can't just kick the bucket here. They've got enemy intel to deliver. But Oslo's feeling the shame, saying the kingdom already slapped a traitor label on them. They've been fighting for 10 straight days, backup is a no-show, and the hot gossip is that help was never even on the way. To stop everyone from spiraling into a pit of despair, the commander shoots up and slams his staff on the ground like a rock star trashing a hotel room. He tells Oslo to zip it, claiming this whole treason thing is just enemy propaganda. Oslo tries to argue back, but gets shut down faster than a bad startup. Commander Baird goes full drill sergeant, ending the debate right there. He's like, we're fighting for our home, and frankly, I don't give a damn if any of you want to quit. And just like that, one of the soldiers is all fired up, yelling he's with Baird till the bitter end. Oslo, catching the vibe, jumps on the bandwagon too, pledging his life to the commander. The mage successfully hypes up the whole squad, and now they're all screaming their loyalty. Looking totally triumphant, he tells them to forget about being abandoned and gives the order, attack. Fast forward 3 days later on the walls of Yabo City. A guard on lookout spots a raggedy group stumbling their way. And who is it? None other than Baird and what's left of his crew. The silver-haired guy, Baird, still somehow manages to let out a weak cheer that they're finally home before face-planting from sheer exhaustion. But his victory nap gets a rude awakening because the situation has done a complete 180. He wakes up in a freaking jail cell. He's yelling, trying to explain he's a Royal Army commander with a 5-alarm report for the king. Then the warden strolls in and drops a truth bomb right on his head. Baird's been officially labeled a traitor. And oh, it gets so much worse. The warden reveals that his wife and son have already been dealt with by the state, and tomorrow, it's his turn for the chopping block. Baird just snaps. He lunges, grabbing the guy by the collar, screaming his lungs out that he's no traitor and demanding they let him and his family go now. The warden shoves him off and lays it out cold. Look, buddy, everyone knows you're not a traitor. The problem is, some big shot in a fancy office wants you gone, and that meant your family had to go too. And after dropping that nuke of a conspiracy, the warden just turns and walks, basically saying, discussion over. Baird is left completely, utterly broken. He gave his all for his country, and in return, he got stabbed in the back. A little while later, some other guard doing his rounds hears a weird noise, and out of the blue, he gets a surprise neckening and faceplants on the floor. Instantly after, Baird's cell door creaks open. It's his boys, who pulled a prison break of their own just to come rescue their commander. But my dude had completely checked out. His will to live officially left the chat. He doesn't even flinch when they show up, just keeps staring at the corner. A shout echoes from down the hall. Someone spotted the crew. And just like that, everything goes sideways. While some of the guys hold off the charging guards, the others grab their zombie mode commander and start dragging him to the exit. To get out of this mess, they've got to fight their way through the whole joint. The very next day, it's time for a public spectacle. The official story is a steaming pile of garbage. They're claiming Baird was a traitor, sold secrets to the enemy, and that just yesterday, he and his army tried to overthrow the government. But of course, they were stopped by the brave local soldiers. The fairy tale continues, saying Baird fought back, took out some guards, and is now a fugitive on the run. Then they trot out the 3 poor souls from his squad who got caught, announcing they're getting the old rope of dope for being rebels. And right there in the middle of the crowd, one of Baird's ride or dies, rocking a hood, is just fuming, watching all these clueless sheeple cheer for a lie. He's got his commander with him, who's still running on empty, zero reaction. The soldier's like, we gotta get out of the city, like yesterday. And that's when Baird finally decides to speak. But it's only to tell his crew to save themselves and just leave him behind. That night, Baird and the guys who clearly didn't listen end up at his family tomb. The squad has no clue what to do, now that their own country has basically ghosted them. Baird then tells them to drop the commander title, because that chapter of his life is closed for good. He declares that the nation that betrayed them is now enemy number 1, and they are going to pay for every last bit of suffering, and then wham, scene change. The girls all snap awake like they're coming out of a weird daydream. Turns out, the whole thing was a magical movie Baird was projecting into their heads. Alice is completely freaked by how real it felt, asking if it was all just some high-tech illusion. Baird, our resident silver-haired edgelord, explains they were just highlight reels from his memory, and he used a sync magic so they all got the same 4 Kelvin stream. The redhead is floored, asking where he even downloaded that kind of ancient magic. Just then, Blair starts to stir and mumble, and the girl's attention snaps right to him. Isabella, looking super worried, starts calling his name. Finally, our boy's eyes flutter open. She lets out a huge sigh of relief, telling him he scared her because he was binge-watching the dream way longer than anyone else. Blair, not getting any of it, and with a single dramatic tear rolling down his face, just stares at the white-haired dude. Looks like our protagonist got the all-access pass to Baird's TraumaCon. Baird then stands up, all like, my bad for the mental intrusion, but this is all about to be over anyway. He explains that before he joined the army, he was a security guard for the city of Yabo. That's where he found this thing they call the system. And that's when the big plan clicked. Step 1, get revenge on the kingdom. Step 2, take his crew and make a beeline for that place. They found a bunch of ancient records in a basement and spent ages cramming. Inside, they found old school magic, lost history, and even the user manual for the system. So get this, ages ago, their ancestors went to war with the people of Yabo City and got absolutely wrecked. So, they built this magical doomsday device. The catch is, the system has never actually been turned on. But once it is, it'll unleash a frankly insane amount of magical energy. So much juice, it could literally delete everything and everyone in Yabo City. With his hands shaking, Baird says that in the blink of an eye, everyone would just be gone, erased from existence. Before she can even process it, Alice tries to stop him, saying she gets why he's mad, but he can't get payback by sacrificing a city full of innocent people. The white-haired guy just smirks and tells her she doesn't understand squat, because half the time, he doesn't even understand himself. Then Blair chimes in, saying that the whole please don't do this speech is a waste of breath. After all, Baird doesn't just want revenge on the kingdom, he wants it on every single person who was laughing while his friends were being permanently logged off. So, Baird's like, yep, the kids saw my tragic backstory, cool. With the system now, his personal plaything, he goes full villain mode, jamming his hand into this freaky-looking energy column. Top City, This gnarly energy starts erupting from the ground, hitting everyone with a vibe so intense it feels like their lungs are getting squeezed. Back on the surface, Elton and the magic squad instantly know the doomsday device is on. Even Professor Brittany, just trying to get some paperwork done in her office, catches this weird new energy. A purple rave starts flashing outside her window, and her first thought is earthquake. But nah, hold up. From the magical shockwaves, she instantly knows it's not an earthquake. Nope, something seriously sinister is going down deep in the earth. Meanwhile, our student heroes are just staring at this ever-expanding ball of "we're all gonna die." Figuring this is the grand finale, Isabella starts her "my bad for getting us all vaporized" apology tour. She's even about to drop the L-bomb on our boy, but he hits her with the ultimate "not now, babe." He's like, "Let's save the heart-to-heart for after we survive this apocalypse, okay?" Isabella is just shook. Our boy's timing is impeccable. Meanwhile, the big bad mage leans back, giving a dramatic "so long, suckers" to his old buddies, vowing to make the whole kingdom regret ever crossing him. With a classic villain smirk, he commands the system to go live, only to get a fistful of Blair-delivered special delivery to his jaw. Yeah, our protagonist decided negotiations were over. That punch had so much heat behind it, it launched the mage several meters back before he ate dirt. Blair knew he had to shut this silver-haired psycho down, and fast. And just like that, back on the surface, nearly every knight in mage just collapses to the ground. Andre immediately puts two and two together. The magic death machine must have been shut off. One of the knights, catching his breath, is like, "Dude, I totally thought we were toast." While the head mage is getting back on his feet and staring at the barrier, Elton spots someone creeping up behind him. And look who it is, Professor Brittany, demanding to know what the hell is happening. They try to feed her the old "all the students went home, you should too" line, but she's not having it, pointing out that Blair and Isabella are still MIA. She's like, "I've got at least two students still down there." And that's when the penny drops for Elton, realizing exactly who she means. The city chief's daughter, Odin, who's right there, overhears this and the color just drains from his face. His kid is smack in the middle of this disaster. Cue the dramatic flashback. His mind zips back to her as a little girl, saying she wanted to join the city's defense force. He was totally floored and asked her why, and her answer was pure, simple kid logic. The tiny badass declared that as a Clavos, she had to protect the city and him. Odin, completely wrecked by the cuteness and courage of it all, scooped her up in a huge hug, just laughing. And now, here she is, all grown up and actually doing it. Snapping back to reality, Baird is still picking himself up off the floor, and he's demanding to know how the hell Blair got out of his ropes. Blair's comeback? A stone cold, "Why don't you ask the soldier you just offed?" Flashback number 2, our boy recalls Ethan slipping him a knife earlier, calling it a city guard tradition. Blair, confused, was like, what are you gonna do without this?" But Ethan just hit him with a prophetic, "You'll need it more than me." Hearing this, Baird actually laughs, admitting he'd forgotten all about that little tradition. He even calls Ethan a respectable soldier. What a guy. Then he squares up with Blair, asking if he's really going to throw down after seeing his whole sob story. The protagonist doesn't even hesitate. He's like, "Yeah, I gotta save my friends and stop a maniac from nuking the city." Baird just shrugs, agree to disagree, and decides playtime is over. He immediately starts weaving a spell, conjuring a fireball the size of a small car. The red-haired girl screams a warning, telling Blair this dude is on another level. But our boy is completely unfazed, coolly stating he's already cracked the code on how to beat this guy. Just then, the mage finishes casting and launches a literal meteor shower straight at Blair. These fireballs are screaming in, ready to turn our hero into a charcoal briquette. But at the very last second, Blair throws up a defensive barrier. The flames hammer against the shield, fighting to get through. But it's no good. The weird part? The fireballs just fizzle out as they phase right through the barrier. The girls are losing their minds. Baird's attack passed through the shield but never even singed our hero. See, Blair didn't just put up a wall. He created a vacuum, sucking all the oxygen out to snuff out the flames. It's a big brain play, and seeing it, Baird finally starts to panic, thinking this guy's basically an avatar and is on a whole other level. Then, out of nowhere, he whips his head around to see another fireball screaming right for his face. This spicy meatball of doom is hurtling towards the white-haired dude, ready to turn him into a charcoal briquette. And right then, the little voice in Blair's head confirms his worst fear. The enemy is casting spells with zero hand-waving required. Our hero sees his opening and closes the distance, even dropping a sick burn on Baird, saying he looks like he skipped leg day and isn't ready for a real brawl. He absolutely clocks the dude right in the kisser, and the hit lands with a cinematic crunch, sending a tooth flying like a stray piece of popcorn. Baird goes full-on ragdoll, flying back several feet before face-planting with the ground and dropping his staff. Seeing a free weapon upgrade, Blair makes a beeline for it. Figuring Baird is still seeing stars, our boy pulls off a slick midair grab. He's now the proud, temporary owner of one massive, blue-tip glow stick. But suddenly, his spidey senses start tingling. This thing is still juiced up. Baird just smirks, revealing his little party trick. The staff was just a glorified sheath for a sword. Classic. Realizing he just fell for the oldest trick in the book, Blair's brain goes into overdrive, but Baird's already on him, sword out, and our hero's reaction time is just a fraction too slow, and Shink Baird lands a nasty slice right on his pre-existing boo-boo. Blair crumples in pain, and just to add insult to injury, Baird gives the wound a good ol' stomp. Our boy is now doing the electric slide of pure agony. The mage is like, gotta admit, kid, you've got moves, but you lack that killer instinct. You had a clean shot and you choked. So, Baird decides it's time to wrap this up and send our hero to the big respawn point in the sky, talking all high and mighty about how, on the battlefield, taking out a worthy opponent is a great honor. But plot twist, Blair snaps his head up, eyes blazing, and screams that it's not over yet. Just then, Baird realizes he's the new main target for a volley of fireballs. They connect with a massive kaboom, giving him a face full of magical fireworks, courtesy of Isabella and Alice. Yep, the girls finally provided some much-needed backup. Baird's a bit singed, and Blair uses that moment to pull the ultimate Uno reverse card. He starts yoinking the very air from around his enemy. He points a very gnarly, blood-covered hand at Baird and lets the magic rip. At first, Baird's just standing there like, is that it? Was that supposed to be a spell? Totally clueless about what's about to hit him. Then, his grip goes limp, and his sword clatters to the floor. And that's when the penny drops. He can't speak. He can't breathe. Baird starts making fish out of water faces, clawing at his throat, while Blair coolly gets back to his feet. Our boy then hits him with the coldest line. Sorry, man, you were right. It is an honor to finish a strong opponent. Meanwhile, Old White Hair is doing the funky chicken, desperate for just a sip of air. His vision starts to tunnel as his last thought is, welp, I failed the squad again. And then, lights out. He hits the deck like a sack of magically suffocated potatoes. The girls rush to Blair's side, super relieved, just as the ominous glow from the pillar starts to die down. Apparently, the trap has an auto-off feature if it gets bored. Handy. Isabella, totally hyped, is like, wait, did we actually just defend the city? The realization hits, and she tackles Blair with a massive victory hug, completely ignoring the fact he's basically a walking collection of bruises. And then, because they can't have nice things, the ceiling decides to start falling on their heads. Alice, the resident nerd, explains it's a classic self-destruct sequence to keep bad guys from looting the gift shop on the way out. Isabella's still buffering, so Alice dumbs it down for her. The whole place is coming down, and right on cue, a chunk of ceiling the size of a minivan decides to introduce itself to their faces. Blair goes into full-on hero mode, grabs both girls, and makes a mad dash for it.